It's another one of those off-season episodes just before Christmas on Some of the Insight here. And here's the thing. I actually realized from doing these episodes, we always could have just done off-season episodes, because if you think about it, right, somehow there is always still a drama, a big riot move, an industry move, something like fan reaction. By the way, now, are you ready? Now we've actually become Hollywood / the mainstream, because now even awards season is just everyone basically like, you're a piece of shit, corrupt arsehole, bastard who hates the industry and denigrates everything I love and hold dear. Actually, what am I talking about awards season? That's just politics. It's election season, money. That's what we're doing now. And if you vote for him, you hate America and want it all to die in a gulag. We're just talking about who player of the year is. Yeah, exactly. You would say that, you biased, vile piece of shit. You know, the one I'll never understand, Monty, is I always do feel bad for you, because in League, I've realised something now, mate. This might be a mad epiphany, but in League, I always thought, well, in League, you are a known figure. And in the early days, when the scene was very, very tame and esports wasn't filled with drama, you were considered spicy, believe it or not, back then. You were actually considered like, oh, he's a bit of a firebrand. He's got, just because you had your own opinions, by the way, like, not riot. Now, obviously, listen, Monty, when you ride with me in a wingman formation, listen, I've thrown a lot of flack out there, so you won't look as spicy in the coming years, and people might actually think you're the reasonable one, etc. But I've noticed this did remind me that you just do get bundled in with everything I do, which is the downside of being associated with me. Same with Dom. So even though what's mad is, I know Dom also, obviously, if you go back, by the way, if you go back like 5 years, yeah, Dom was pretty spicy, but he's got way milder, you know. Like I actually think, by the way, the irony is Dom still has this rep that he has crazy hot takes. I actually think he's got the most reasonable takes of almost any Western figure.
Basically,
like he's the guy where he'll give way more to like the faker stands that we do, mate. Like we'll say fakers also, but he'll even try to sort of be like, I'm not trying to hate on them guys. Like even still on that one, he's still trying to like save fucking vampires at this point in time. Dom, they can't be, they've been turned, bro. It's over, they're dead. Like you'll love to when it's gone. You can only put a stake through the heart, mate. Like that's figuratively, obviously, on twitch.tv in Minecraft. So anyway, my point is like these people, like they always go, Monty. It's one thing when they go, Thorin's an incel. That they all say about you now. Like people like you and Dom are in that mix. Like, now even Caedrel, by the way, Caedrel's been playing like a children's TV entertainer for the last 3 years, just doing all the shit you guys want, bouncing around like, hey guys, great energy. And then you're like, he's a vile incel piece of shit trying to denigrate Faker's legacy. He fucking loves Faker. He's done everything he can to glaze him for you, the idiot fan, and you're hating him. So I don't know how do you ever wonder how you get roped into some of this shit, mate? Because you haven't even said it. It's like anything Dom does is Dom, me, and you did it. Anything I do is me, Dom, you. And then now Caedrel's getting in this group. Like, is anyone left? Is everyone just cursed? Are they all tainted by association at this point? What's going on?
I just find it funny because Caedrel has been, like, honestly, he has been trying to walk the line of pleasing the fan bases.
He's been doing a good job.
What I mean?
He did a very sort of shrewd job. Like, put it this way, you know that concept, Monty, from the Bible of like, I'm all things to all men. He was doing an awesome job of that. That's why he was the most popular sort of co-streamer. But it is crazy because you'd think he was like, like he had my opinions. It's like, well, actually, Rookie's the best of all time and Fake shouldn't win anything. Like, you would think it was my opinions, bro. It's like they're going crazy on this guy. I still think he's a massive T1 fan, obviously.
Oh, of course. And like, look, he obviously has close ties to the org. I mean, remember in Korea last year when he was literally streaming from the T1 facility.
I remember if they hadn't have been in the final and he wasn't doing that joke thing of I support the shy and Weibo, he probably would have done the whole tournament. Wouldn't he? Like, he was obviously like in for it. By the way, what do you think of that though? What do you think of the fact that you get dragged into it all now?
I mean, I've always been dragged into it. So it doesn't change at all. And if anything, I have been highly critical of the T1 overglazing, I would say, because it messes with esports history. And I mean, that pisses me off, but I know it pisses you off even more because you are the esports historian. And when we get these, it was one thing, I will say this, it was one thing to have the Esports Awards, which are they even Esports Awards anymore? Because they seem like streamer awards with some esports tacked onto them. They don't really seem very esportsy. They're more about content creators. So that has been perverted by, a drift away from esports, where if you're going to call yourself the Esports Awards, why are we giving away Streamer of the Year to random streamers, you know what I mean, who have nothing to do with esports.
They probably also, in these Esports Awards, if you think of it now, should have just had individual game awards anyway. You know what I mean? Like, it is dumb to just have, you've got PC player that you just won an award for, like, the player of the year. What are you talking about? Like,
but you see, we don't have time. We don't have time for LoL player of the year and CS player of the year because we have to give away streamer of the year to somebody who's unaffiliated with esports whatsoever.
Yeah.
And look, the word Esports Awards.
Win, because if I didn't win, I'm not coming. And then when they go, yeah, come. Oh, I love esports. And if not, they're like, fuck the Esports Awards.
Well, like, they use the word esports like a boomer uses esports, which is just to mean streaming games.
Yes.
On Twitch.
Oh, right? No, that's great. You've just made me realize you're right. The Esports Awards is just that boomer in real life. Like, oh, esports. My son watches Fortnite on Twitch. And you're like, no, I'm working in like, Counter-Strike and games. Yeah. One time he won a battle, right? Winner, chicken dinner. It's like, oh, that's the other one there, Grandad. That's PUBG. No, he did though. He won one once. He was third in the world. And you're like, right, I have to go. I've got my trains here. You don't know what you're talking about, boomer. Get me out of here. That is the Esports Award. You're like, and moment of the year, is it this COD clip or is it this other Rocket League clip? And you're like, I don't watch these games. That's the thing that actually does get me, Monty. I am like immersed in esports. Some would say I've not only lived esports, but are you ready? I am esports. And I watched that award show and I'm like, I'm actually not following the scene. Why is everything like Rocket League, FIFA, Call of Duty? Like, I don't follow these games. Like, where's all the shit I'm following? And like, am I just in a bubble or something? Turns out I actually am in a bubble. I don't know if anyone knew that. I am indeed in a bubble.
A glorious bubble. So, I mean, but this doesn't even go into the fact that obviously the Esports Awards has been extremely compromised by people who are on the panel, like myself and Thorin and Richard Lewis, i.e. the people with decades of esports experience have left the panel because of their questionable practices, as well as the fact that they are now just taking money shamelessly from Saudi Arabia. They canceled the Journalist of the Year award, by the way, that Thorin has won. Richard's won, what, twice? Three times? Three times? Yeah. They just canceled the award this year because any logical person would have said that they should give it to James Fudge from the Esports Advocate. And he is a vehement anti-Saudi propaganda person, so they couldn't give that away. And also other people who would inevitably be nominated for it, yourself, Richard Lewis.
I wouldn't, but Richard would be obviously, yeah, of course. And obviously, by the way, it's implied he's blacklisted from everything. Yes, all related, so I don't think he would have been on it, yeah.
Right. And so, I mean, this was obviously rolled into, like, the Esports Award was then rolled into the Saudi Arabian Esports World Cup. But, of course, they had a secondary one that was supposed to be in Los Angeles, where supposedly we could safely give a Journalist of the Year award even to somebody who is critical of the Saudi Arabian government. But no, they just canceled that award entirely. So, I mean, their credibility is obviously zero right now. And the people who are on the panel have no real way to judge many of the most popular esports games because they don't have people who know those games really on that panel anymore. So, I mean, it's kind of a wasteland at this point in time. So this is all to say, I wasn't surprised when, Faker won PC Player of the Year over there because people are clueless and they just think, oh, wow, look at these plays in the last two games of Worlds. He must be the greatest PC Player of the Year.
Also, this, Monty, as someone who was on the panel, I've always said unfortunately, it was all, listen, I know people aren't going to want to hear this because it sounds like I am esports again, doesn't it? But I am esports because if you don't know, people like me, Monty and Richard were the load-bearing structures of the fucking panel. Like, if you were there in any of those calls, Monty, I'm not even the league person. I mean, I am, but you know what I mean? I'm not like Sjokz or whatever. I used to be explaining league things to people who were like fucking COD people or Rocket League people. And so essentially that award, this is why Faker is the ultimate bait to ruin those awards, because he was the GOAT. Everyone in the other games has heard of him and knows about him. If they hear things like he won Worlds last year and this year, it sounds like he's the best again. And so then basically, since they didn't watch him play, I know it sounds weird to you people, but most of the people on the panel, by definition, haven't watched the other people they're voting on because they're just watching their game. So unfortunately, it would be essentially like, here's the analogy, right? Obviously, Simple just did a recent comeback in CS2, right? Imagine if his team had sort of fluked the major and he didn't even play well, but everyone in the other games like COD was like, oh, Simple's on there. Oh, I know Simple, he's goated. And then they all voted for Simple because they're like, it must be right? Simple to goat. So in a weird way, the Esports Awards, actually Faker always was going to be the one that would take you down, because if you didn't watch the games, it's still Faker, right? It makes sense that you vote for him, and that seems like a totally legit vote, even though the irony is it's actually rarely this is why I hate the thing so much, Monty, is because you know what? It's actually, even though you ruin an esports history when you give like a bad player an award, the lucky thing is in history, they will stand out like a sore thumb when you look at an MVP and you go, oh, that guy. There's been a few in the NFL and the NBA over the years where you're like, really? Like that seems like a weird media angle. The problem is when you put the GOAT there, it just makes the GOAT look like they had an even better career than they did. You know what I mean? Like you actually do muddy the water because obviously he was the most deserving player ever, and probably for the most years. But now you've given him fake years. Same thing happened to Messi with the Ballon d'Or, by the way. And to his fans, they don't care. It's just more blood for the blood god, more trophies, more GOAT shit. It's like, no, that's actually worse because what's stupid is you now, in theory, this won't look. Hopefully, this won't happen. But what you haven't thought about if you're a Faker fan is, bro, what if someone saw that in history he won these Player of the Years like at the end and watched a few games and went, oh, that was just how good he was. That was that. Like what happens, Monty, if they just randomly tune into like I'll look in the year he won Player of the Year. Let me have a look how he did in the summer playoffs. This is their GOAT. Fuck, League is a shit game, and this guy's not even that good. What the fuck? I thought this guy was the best ever. It would actually undercut his whole career. You'd think he wasn't that good, mate. Because this implies he had a second renaissance where he was still the best player in the world twice in a row. And also, do you know the angle I should have hit harder? I actually did fuck up, Monty. I made this too much about Faker. Here's the political angle it should have been. My platform doesn't work, Monty, because you can't have a platform that goes, you know the GOAT that you all love, let's give him less awards. That'll never be a popular platform, will it? Do you know what the angle I should have taken was? You're actually not a T1 fan. You, in fact, hate T1 because you're stealing awards from Zeus and Carrier or Gumayushi or Owner. You're just saying they can. Because I will ask this question for real to any expert, Monty. Any expert who says things like, oh, it's about more than just award. By the way, every other Player of the Year award was, Player of the Year, the one who played the best. Magically, when it's Faker, Monty, it's like, what about his impact on the game? And in many ways, isn't he Carrier? What are we even talking about right now? So I'll just ask this question. How is it actually possible in those lineups, if you are Zeus, Owner, Gumayushi or Carrier, to ever win an award? You can't. You can't be the best player on the team. They did that. You can't be the MVP of the set. You can't. That doesn't work. Essentially, if you win, Faker wins no matter what. Because the problem is obviously this year I did the game-winning players. Last year he didn't even do the bro. Like I don't even know what we're doing at this point in time. Like I actually feel like that's actually fucked up for them. Like it makes it look for real. They were his Sand Soldiers bro. He was just the GOAT, and then they were just minions doing whatever. Like I think for someone like Zeus, that's fucking gross, mate. You're really good. By the way, I was dissing you when you lost to King, so I have to give you the props when you win the fucking World Championship. You got it, mate.
And I think, when we compare it to last year, and I think it's clear he was less deserving of the Player of the Year award last year, because so there's several things we have to take into consideration here. So at the start of 2023 in spring, you could have said T1 is the best team in the world during that period, right? That was the split. Yeah. That was the split that they were doing.
In the regular split, they were awesome. It's just like Hanwha came alive in the Genji came alive in the playoffs, didn't they? They just got it going, yeah.
So, Faker had a really legitimate split in the spring, and then but by the summer he was injured for a third half of the split. And I don't care who you are, guys. You don't vote for MVPs of players who are injured. That's not something that happens in sports.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Imagine if a player was to miss a third of a season or half a season in sports. How could they possibly get the MVP? Because it doesn't really matter how well they played for the rest of it or if they came back and they won the title. It's inconceivable because they just didn't actually play enough games. So he gets to Worlds and he does a pretty good job at Worlds, but he's not the MVP of the World Finals. It's not like this year where you could say he clutched it.
Here's the problem. One, because he was facing all those amazing mid laners, like on paper, remember at that Worlds, he faced like Scout, who was the MVP of the LPL, into Knight, who everyone was saying was like one of the best in the world, into even though Zhao, who wasn't like at his best last year, like he's a historic player, he's the LPL GOAT or whatever. So I think the problem is, one, the players he played make it look like Faker must have been better. And then secondly, we all remember the amazing players he made in the JDG series. Everyone's just remembering that one moment and they're thinking like, just like this year, he was like the MVP. The difference is, I'm with you. You could make a way better case that he was like the MVP of this Worlds than he was of that one. I think for that one, by the way, it's just the Zeus show. He just doesn't Zeus just clap on the best
Zeus was deservedly got the finals MVP. Yeah.
Think of his list. He goes Zika, who at the time was on a heater, into fucking 369. Everyone said couldn't be beaten, into fucking the Shy, who was actually having a pretty good tournament that once. Like, I actually think that's what I mean. Zeus can't win, bro. What can Zeus do to win this award? He can't. I don't assassinate Faker in Minecraft on Twitch.tv. Yeah, whatever. You get the point.
So
I would say T1's lawyers will contact me, but have T1's lawyers ever contacted anyone is the question. So I was saying this to you, Monty. Have you ever noticed here's how you know, guys, here's the giveaway that whole thing with Zeus and Hanwha Life was just T1, Joe Marsh, and some COO guy having a temper tantrum for a week. It's because the first few days, every leak was like, we're going to fucking get the law onto you, and we're gonna dig up dirt, and we're going to use the media, and you'll never talk to T1 again, and you're a piece of shit, and the way you've behaved is disrespectful. It's that. And then what's mad is nobody seems to have been actually had a lawsuit filed against them. Nobody's had any media contact. Nothing's been leaked. No dirt has come out. And magically now they're all happy that Zeus said it's totally his choice. And actually, it's not a big deal. Welcome, Thorin. This is all going to be great. Like, we've just put it with fucking like reverse time, bro. What is this? Like, we were at fever pitch before it was the end of the world. Also, by the way, they did sort of imply, if you look at the like either the agents or Zeus are just pieces of shit. But like magically now it's just okay.
And also, I will point out that the LCK does have to basically register these agents and have an official approval process now with tests and everything like that. So just quick question. If they did something that was horrible, why didn't LCK just already toss them out? Is there some sort of investigation going on?
It was implied Hanwha themselves sort of knew about all this because they were leaking info back to the 3 p.m. deadline. Well, I'll tell you what, logically, Monty, here's how you actually know. I actually think by like lateral thinking that this didn't happen, what the T1 says. Because the most obviously motivated people to fuck this agent up would be everyone except the org that got him. Like, Hanwha gets it, so maybe they wouldn't say it. But logically, T1 and every other org should go, this is, like you're saying, this is like a protected ecosystem that you, Kesper, and Riot have signed off on who these agents are, so we can use these guys and have them vetted. And this guy's completely fucked everyone in the off-season and held up the whole thing and done all this outrageous stuff. You're right. In theory, they should have, like, the equivalent of, like, getting disbarred as a fucking agent by, like, Kesper and Riot, right? Oh, but actually, by the way, people are thinking this is, like, silly. In the West, that might not happen. That's actually very likely to happen in Korea if you really were the people who fucked with the power structure. Like, you can't fuck with people like T1, mate. They're really high up in the pecking order of the Kespers of the world, etc.
Of course.
You'd actually think you would have some sort of, at least like a gesture or something, like an official warning or a dressing down. Nothing's happened, guys. As far as I know,
nothing happened to the agency.
I really think everyone's just like, oh, well, back to bed. Like, it's over. The drama's done. It was just for real. Joe Marsh and that other CEO just wilding for a week. Just for a week. Just a whole week. What the fuck? I want mashed potatoes. I want mashed potatoes. And then someone just comes in, got some KFC? Oh, all right. And they're just eating some Thorin out there. See, yeah, I'm off with Thorin now, babe. I'm in. I'm all in.
It's almost as though, some of this information got bungled, like they couldn't hear it clearly. But if you would like to hear it clearly, check out our sponsor, Turtle Beach. They're back. Also, great holiday gift. We'll have some holiday gifts for you in this episode, but Turtle Beach is way up there. If you've got gamers in your life, these are the Stealth 700 Gen 3s. These are brand new model. They are amazing. You might be asking yourself, well, Monty, if they're amazing, why aren't you wearing them right now? I need a wired headset to talk into this microphone and hear myself. It's called Side Tone, guys. These are also Turtle Beach. These are the open back Atlas Airs, which are also wireless, but they have a wired option. Hence why I'm wearing them right now. When I'm not on stream or doing these podcasts, I do wear the Stealth 700s. Excellent sound quality. They have 2 wireless receivers, so you can put one in a console, put one in your PC, and there's just one button to flip between them, so you don't have to screw around with multiple headsets. 80 hours of battery life on these, and a way to listen to us while you're playing games. So they have simultaneous wireless and Bluetooth connectivity with separate volume wheels on the different ear cups. Okay. So you can listen to us or anything else, music on your phone, a Discord call, while you're actually playing your PS5 or your Xbox, your console, listening to stuff on your PC, but maybe you don't want to have it open on that monitor. Or you only have one monitor and you're watching us on your phone down below. It's great. So lots of functionality here. Excellent, excellent sound quality. You can look up reviews of these anywhere. The reviews are glowing, so you don't just have to trust us. But great, great gift for Christmas. And, of course, we have that discount for you as well. So if you guys want to get the ultimate immersive gaming experience with Turtle Beach for a limited time, head to turtlebeach.com and, of course, use our code SUMMONING for 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code SUMMONING. Don't delay. Get the perfect gift now. Happy holidays from us and Turtle Beach. And also, they have keyboards. They have mechanical keyboards. They have the Kone Air 2 mouse. They have flight sticks. They have...
It's not just headsets.
Racing kits. They have...
Yes.
Fight sticks for fighting games. There's a pre-order. They have controllers. So whatever you guys want. It's great stuff from Turtle Beach. Thank you very much for the sponsorship.
I'd also say, by the way, if people know gaming headsets, often the concern for me is like, oh, is it going to be like super like plasticky and easy to break? The actual build quality is good on this, mate. I was very surprised how sturdy it is and like how big the headset is, etc. Yep. Yeah, it's not one of those like, it's not like what people are thinking of the first gaming headsets where they're really cheap and they like fit onto your ears and don't properly go. It fits over really nicely and almost does like feels like it forms the vacuum around your ears. It's actually really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got open back ones like this, the Atlas Air closed back, like the brand new Stealth 700 Gen 3s. Great stuff. Great gifts for the holidays, guys. Get your 10% off. Code summoning. Let's talk. I want to switch back to the League Awards.
Yeah, here's what we need to do, though. We obviously already did a few weeks ago about like the real PC player of the year. I already even did a whole Substack thing on it. So let's do the Caedrel angle. Because obviously, as you say, the response to the fact that this awards is compromised. And by the way, if people don't know, it's actually quite significant that someone like Sjokz would do this. Because if people don't know, she was herself, like in the way Richards like dominated the Journalist of the Year award. I think she's won Host of the Year 3 years, by the way, and worked the actual awards as the host of the award itself, like many times.
On the panel with us.
Yeah, she was actually one of the most like pivotal people within the. By the way, that's why I always said she is esports too. She's definitely one of the like OG group that's in that sense. So the fact that she and Caedrel, and by the way, obviously Caedrel is like riding the wave of like probably the most popular person in Western League right now. The fact that they are doing this awards is a big deal. In fact, I have to say that's something that to me was a bit jarring about the situation. Why I feel low-key bad for Caedrel in a way, Monty, because if you think about it, people like me are like, fuck these awards, it's all ruined anyway. Then all the T1 fans are like, no, fuck you, Caedrel. It's like everyone's just saying fuck Caedrel for making his own awards. So here's that scenario.
Look, I think him and Sjokz doing this is great because we know, as we said earlier, the Esports Awards are compromised. We know that it's very difficult to have a body of people who are capable of giving the correct
even though this result might not be what I want, Monty. I could believe the panel's super legit. I don't know who's on it, but I'm going to guess it's people.
I voted.
Fucking Metal Cannon or something like that. Yeah, people who know the game. I'm going to guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do want to give credit to Sjokz and Caedrel for putting this up because with the Esports Awards being so compromised and messed up, it's important that we have, and you might say, well, God, why do you guys care about these awards? Well, because they leave a historical record that you guys might laugh it off now, but in 5 years, when people are looking back at this, they're going to get a really false sense of what happened in the history of the game, which is lame because then it taints, it creates these arguments about players' legacies.
We don't have it, but imagine it. Here's how you can tell that this is good, Monty, to have awards. Imagine if there was awards for the years we don't have. Imagine if you could go back to like 2012 and it's like, actually, Froggen is the player. That would be big. All those people telling me I'm glazing now. Maybe he would have won the award or maybe like double it for like ADC of the year or something. Like that would be pretty big. If you could go back and watch that now and you had all real experts like Jat or something, it would be dope to see that. It's like a historical artifact. It'd be cool, wouldn't it?
And also, you guys ask why it's important. It's because it's important to honor people who do good work within the industry and to properly honor them. Who knows if Faker and T1 even feel anything from this award, but nobody likes to win an award that they feel they didn't really earn either. And that, that actually just throws away the meaning of the award in its entirety. So it is important to have awards, and it's important that these awards are properly given out and that they have a lot of integrity behind them, which obviously the Esports Awards has been sliding away from year after year. But there is a hope that in spite of what happened at the League Awards this year, that if Caedrel and Sjokz decide to continue it, that going forward, it can actually hold this place because Riot doesn't want to put together an award. And, this was expensive. Like if you actually looked at the production value, they had to set up professional production for this. They had to set up all this social media posting. Like this wasn't cheap to put on. And as far as I can tell, it was like Caedrel and also maybe Sjokz somewhat footing the bill for this, but probably mostly Caedrel if I had to guess. And that is, I think, very noble of Caedrel. And if you're asking why should we care about these awards? The answer is because Caedrel clearly cares about these awards. He wouldn't do it if he wanted to just give away some illegitimate awards. I think Caedrel absolutely cares about the history of League of Legends, telling the story of the game properly. He was a caster who did that for years before he, moved into just doing the co-streaming
what even is that corp take anyway? Like we're all sat like in a pub and we've arranged like a meeting of the Smiths Fan Society. And then I come in and I go, of course, the way Morrissey was singing in the 80s, and someone goes, I don't care about the Smiths, then fuck off. We're having to me in here. Like, I don't, there's two things about Monty. One, what even is that take? Hey, I think it's fucked up this guy won an award. Well, the awards don't matter, so why do you care? Why do you care that I care then, by that logic, dick face? Think about it. Shut the fuck up and let people care about things. Then secondly, how about this one? This is the one that does my head in. It's only an award. Who even cares? I doubt Faker even cares. It's not a big deal. Well, I actually think someone else should have won. It's the end of the world. Burn it down. Burn it all down. You thought I said it's just an award, guys. Which is it? I thought it was just an award a minute ago. Oh, it's just an award when you got everything you wanted and you didn't feel upset about anything. But the second you got upset, now Caedrel's an actual incel who can't have sex with women. Oh, well, that seems like a reasonable response to him, not voting for Faker in an award that definitely doesn't matter and we shouldn't all get over-invested in. It's almost like you have the exact same feeling I do when you feel like something is outrageous and something has been stolen from someone who deserves something weird. It's almost like it's a human reaction, isn't it? It's weird. Weird how that works, isn't it?
So I mean, I do want to say, like, I hope these awards continue because I think they do provide a good place for a very legitimate award structure for League of Legends. The problem that they ran into was that, as I understand it, when it came to Player of the Year, because what was so crazy, Thorin, is that LCK Player of the Year was chosen.
Yeah, they give it to, yes, exactly.
Because that's the problem with Player of the Year was that Bin and Chovy split the panel votes. And then because the fans had 30%. Now, what this means, logically, guys.
Oh, it's amazing. This actually, by the way, I'm going to give you an example in a second. This happened in the NBA once. Someone who got the most real first place points lost because of who the second votes were. That's a real thing.
But here's the thing, guys. If you consider that the fans had 30% of the vote, even if all 30% of the fans voted for Faker.
Yeah, they couldn't have overruled him. Exactly.
They couldn't have overruled. So some people on the panel must have voted for Faker, which is, by the way, completely fucking insane.
Here's the meme. It's me as Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Bastards saying, "You're hiding Faker voters from the panel under the floorboards, aren't you?" And Caedrel's going, Pepe's sweating. That's the meme. There you go. That's the meme. Even though in that meme I made myself a Nazi, it was a fictional character in a movie for a meme.
You did make yourself Christoph Waltz. Is a great actor, though.
He's a pretty dope one to be. If you're going to be one, why not lean into it? You know what I mean? Don't be a shit one who's just a henchman and Indiana Jones gets shot in the face in scene one. Actually be a dope one. Yeah, do that.
But in any case, I think that, first off, I think that the votes should be transparent, obviously.
What's the problem with that? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think the voting should have been transparent. Also, I think giving the fans 30% of the vote was just way too much. And I understand, because right now what you have to do is you have to do this very narrow tightrope walk between, we need people to care about this. How do we get people to care about this? We need our social media posts to get the maximum.
You actually do want Faker stands to vote for this award.
Of course.
It's actually the
you also just want them participating on social media to juice the metrics. And you want to juice that engagement. So how do you get that? You have to have the fan vote, so people click on the social media post so that they actually vote. So then the algorithm says, send this to more people. And so the fan vote is actually very important, right? And the fans want to feel included. However, I will say that giving the fans 30% of the vote is far too much power. And had I been asked about this in advance, I would have said, don't do that. Give them 10% maybe.
The reason 10% is, here's what's funny. People are going to think, but 30 can't beat 70. No, because that implies that every time the 70% will all vote for one person. Well, and here's the problem, Monty. Because of Faker's popularity, it is possible a lot of the 30% will vote for just him, whereas that won't happen with the 70%. You'll get a split vote. This year, the problem is someone actually might say Bin, someone might say Chovy, someone might even say Knight. I don't think so, but you know what I mean? So it depends what angles you want to take. So the problem, I see what you mean. Because if you don't know, Monty, that's actually a rare case that a lot of people aren't aware of, which is people might know that Charles Barkley won the NBA MVP in 1993, right? But what they won't know is in 1988, Monty, he received the most first place votes, but didn't win the award because all the other voters split. Essentially a few people voted for, I think, Michael Jordan first, and then the problem was everyone put Magic Johnson second. So amazingly, it made Magic Johnson overall just pip the award and beat Barkley, who had way more first place votes, because he did a 1-2-3, which I'm guessing he did something similar here, right? So because he did a 1-2-3 and Magic Johnson, so essentially the most people didn't even vote Magic Johnson the MVP, but he got to be the MVP of that season, bizarrely. And then Charles Barkley, now here's why it's funny though, Monty, because the reason I said everyone remembers he won in 93 is nobody remembers he should have won that award. Nobody in history. It's actually the perfect example to highlight what we're talking about. In the future, everyone will assume Faker this year was way better than Bin. That will be anchovy. That will literally be the assumption. Which is why we're mad about this award. And spoiler, it's why, in a fucked up way, that's why I did that point about how they say the award doesn't matter, but it clearly does. It matters to them as well, Monty. Look, they might have a different opinion than us. They might actually think that Faker deserves it. I get it. But the point is, they understand that if you deserve something, you want the person to get it, and it's satisfying to see people get what they deserve. But back to Caedrel and getting wrecked by all his own fans. Anyway, so back into that. Back to all of that. What do you think about this whole thing, though? What's your thought on like the drama afterwards?
I mean, so
because I actually thought it was going to end like usual, like it was just going to end like, hey, Faker wins, I rage about it and do some sort of great content piece. We talk about something, and then that's it. I didn't expect this like after drama of Caedrel coming out with something and then his fans going mad. That's like kind of wasn't expected at all.
I do appreciate that Caedrel came out with this information and said that he voted for
seemed legit to me. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Was criticizing the process, because I can only imagine, Thorin, that because I know Faker cares about the history of the game, that, you know, the thing that he paid for, his awards show.
You said Faker, but you meant Caedrel, yeah?
Yeah. The thing that Caedrel paid for, and the thing that he wanted to come out because Caedrel cares about the history of League of Legends and really, you know, the integrity. And then for it to spit out this result is probably pretty frustrating. I would be very frustrated.
Look, obviously, it wasn't my awards, Monty, but you know this. The moment that made me start to question the Esports Awards was we all went to the awards. We've done this for many years at this point in time. I think it was like 2019, if you remember. We sat there and they were going like, and PC Player of the Year, which, by the way, is the most important award in my opinion. That is just like the alpha male of fucking esports. That is it's essentially we're all here for the fucking players anyway, guys. Who is the best player in the whole world? And if you remember, Monty, that year, it was interesting. It could have been Doinby from FPX or Caps from G2 or Zeus in CS or Simple. And then I remember sitting there and they read out, and it is Booger from Fortnite, who was just a guy who won their like world championship, which if you remember at the time, that wasn't even based at the time in Fortnite on like you got the kills. Like you could just like time out within the circle and shit. It was and I remember when he won, I was just like, what is this? Like history's ruined now. Like that feeling is a really palpable. Again, people might go, it's just no big deal, is it? Also, by the way, I'll just throw this out there. I'm not dissing the awards itself. Like the premise we've just pointed out is good. I'm glad it exists compared to the Esports Awards. Even more so, I actually went back and watched, because I saw all the results on Twitter. I went back and watched the broadcast the next day. The actual broadcast was really good, Monty. Yeah, it was actually exactly what an LFN. If we did an awards, we would do it exactly like that. We'd have like a really long podcast, like a mega episode of Some of the Insight with guests coming in and out. And then like what was brilliant was people like Sjokz and Law made like the atmosphere was fun and banter, but at the same time they could get serious and they could have like the real experts. And then you have people like Dom and Yamato coming in. It was actually a really fun broadcast. I thought it was very well done. It did have more of a feel of like you're an industry insider than we're just like trying to be the Oscars. I thought it was dope. I actually thought the broadcast itself was really good. I obviously just have qualms at who won and what the process is.
Yeah. And I know Caedrel didn't want, this result, and it's frustrating to probably have bankrolled the majority, if not all of this, and then come out with this result, which is, this is why when we did our like year-end awards for Power Spike, I put in the Faker of the Year award at the end, because people are just going to get mad if Faker doesn't win anything. But Faker, he wasn't the player of the year.
Obviously, that's what I thought my best joke around all this. Again, another mistake I made? Because I actually really care. Because guess what, Monty? Do you know why I care? Because I've given 23 years of my adult life to fucking chronicling the history of esports. So yeah, I do care about the history of esports. I know it's fucking weird. What's weird is this, Monty. Who the fuck would ever turn around to Faker and ask him why he cares about League? Remember, League is by definition a little fucking kid's game that's like a daughter clone where you go like, to Minion, and all the girls like, I'm Hitimo in a bush. He's given his whole adult life to that. Do we all mock him and go, bro, it's just a game? Bro, it's just get over it. It's just a game. No, we all understand to him, it's everything. It's his craft. He's the Michael Jordan of that fucking game, isn't he? Well, guess what? I'm trying to do that to fucking historical, like, chronicling and all that shit. So I do care about that topic. It essentially is important to me. It's not some minor fucking detail, is it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think this stuff is complicated, obviously, to break down. T1 also winning Team of the Year is very weird. In League of Legends, I don't know what metric you're saying that goes by. Maybe in terms of a business, like a business operation, I think you could make some sort of argument because of the way that they've, packaged their brand and packaged their players. You could make that argument because it's been highly successful worldwide, but not from a this is the results of our tournament play.
It's more like org of the year. If you wanted to do that, you could give them a vote. Sure. I'm with you on that. Like, if you want to do the cultural impact, do it. But that's not a real thing for like team of the year for me against results. It's like, what did you do? How good were you as a team? Were you the best team?
Yeah, which they were not. I mean, to talk about the actual record with Faker, I think he was the second best mid laner in LCK in the spring. He was terrible in summer. And then he was the MVP of the finals at Worlds. And I think that probably puts him, I mean, I think you could make an argument that if we're really talking about player of the year, you could make an argument for him being third or fourth, I think, at the highest, right? It just depends on, because I think Bin and Chovy were clearly the top two players, and then it's a question of Knight versus Faker, like in that third and fourth spot.
You wouldn't put anyone else from T1 in? No one else from T1 gets on the list?
I mean, that's the thing, is like Faker is the world's MVP. So if you really, that's what I'm saying. Those would be the highest spots you could rate Faker, I would say.
I don't even get that one though. Like, why is he the MVP of Worlds? I don't get it. Oh, by the way, I will say this. To be fair, everyone does always say that. Technically, I believe World's MVP is just the finals, Monty.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So, and even in the finals, look, he did great plays in Game 4 and Game 5. Was he the best player in that series? I don't know about that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Ben was actually the best player in that series.
Yeah, even though he lost. Why wouldn't he be? He was dope. Yeah, it's a team game. He did what he could.
But I do think Faker did deserve the finals MVP, because without him, those plays in Game 4 and Game 5 just don't happen. So I think he is very deserving of that. But like I said, that's why you can put it at like third or fourth, depending on how much you weight that finals MVP performance, which I think should be weighted pretty heavily. I'd still put Knight above him on the entire year, but it really is a lot of that summer split was just so bad. And I think the other problem is, Thorin, is that the way viewership in League of Legends works is obviously you have the international events, which are the top two. And then domestically, spring always gets more viewership than summer. Summer's when people are out doing other things. It's later after the changes to the game. So I think a lot of people watch spring more to see how to play the changes of the game. And so by the time we get to summer, people are busy. It's kind of the same old. There's no aura around the freshness of these changes that Riot has made, and they tend to check out a little bit more. So it's very convenient that the last couple of years,
summer by definition is more important as it qualifies you to World. So
sure,
funny how that works, isn't it?
I think the Faker's injury season in 2023 and then his terrible season in summer 2024 were also coincidentally the least watched times of his year, effectively. By
the way, that's one of the things I find really jarring as well, Monty, about this stupid retcon narrative that T1 was secretly the best, but they were saving strats for the major and fucking just waited till Worlds to properly play League. Is, bro, like, the dumbest part about that is, if you remember how bad they were, Monty, when they were almost getting eliminated by fucking KT, when D+ beat them in the regional, like, that team right there, we're supposed to pause. Remember, that's all we saw before Worlds, Monty. We're supposed to watch that game and go, well, we're morons. This isn't happening, what we're seeing now. That's secretly the best team in the world. And if I don't say they win Worlds, I'm an idiot. We're just gaslighting everyone now. But what was happening this year? That's what I don't get. Like, we were watching those weeks, mate. Like, it's true. Fucking KT Roaster almost just eliminated them from even making Worlds. And KT Roaster isn't good. It never was. Well, I mean, a year ago, but not this year.
Not with this roster.
No, they were bad. They were a bad team. I still don't get that. Essentially, I've just told you guys, they lost to D+. Fucking D+. You know, D+, the team that were the Santa Claus of Worlds, handing out Swiss wins. You get an Opera, you get a win, and you get a win, and you... I'm trying to give you one, but you can't even fucking close it. All right, I'll take that one then, but you get a win, you get a win. They were just giving out wins, and then now, what, you didn't think T1 would win? No, why would I? I've still never heard a reason. As far as I can tell, Monty, the reason is just like, cause Faker's the GOAT, and he's 140. What even is that?
It's the magic. It's the magic.
I mean, that'll play every year. You are aware. By that logic, right? Sight unseen, Monty. I should just say T1 wins Worlds this year and Faker's the player of the year in 2025. That's just logical because every reason for why it just still applies. He's still the GOAT. No, by the way, he's more likely now, Monty. He's just won 5 Worlds. And you know what? He's now back-to-back player of the year. So also, by the way, he's actually GOAT era now. By the way, Trophy's never even been player of the year, guys. Faker's 2 years in a row know. Let's see if Chovy can one day get to Fakers that I can't fucking handle it. I get me out of this fucking world. Get me out. Let me exit. I need out. I need out of the Matrix. Get me out.
So, yeah, it's super disappointing that, the panel...
Just stuck in the League of Legends Matrix begging Morpheus. I suck your dick for the red pill. Please, Morpheus, let me get out, please. I can't take it. I can't handle it, mate. I can't handle it.
But people are wondering why there's such a hubbub about all this. It's because people actually give a shit about these awards being given to the right people because they put markers in history that we go back and discuss later on. And we really, really want a legitimate awards show. And just saying, well, who cares about awards shows? I can tell you right now, everybody in this fucking industry cares. I care about awards shows. Everybody cares about awards shows. They're important. They're important to the history of the industry. And so to have them be compromised by the fans when at the end of the day, this should be a panel of experts who are deciding most of this, and to not include mechanisms for, potentially like ranked choice voting instead of first past the post voting, right? Where, maybe I don't know how they did it. Maybe they did weight the votes. And because Faker was like pretty high up on a bunch of people's lists, he just managed to beat it out because Chovy and Bin were splitting a bunch of first place votes. But it is sad that this is the result, because we're going to end up with the first League Awards being kind of bizarre. And I would like them to continue.
Here's the obvious angle, Monty. Bear in mind, I'll tie together what we started the show with. The obvious problem here is it's like, goodbye, Esports Awards. Hello, League Awards. Same old awards. That's what it isn't. By the way, we've just described all the material differences. The broadcast is actually legit people from the scene. I imagine the panel's 100 times more legit. They're trying to give it a community feel. The problem is, though, the results are the same. So that's what makes you worried. It's like, fuck, what did we do here? We just ended up with the exact same result, which we all... Here's the real problem, Monty. Fair play to Caedrel for having the balls to say he didn't vote for them, because it implies his panel actually disagree with us and they do think Faker's the best. In which case, look, I don't want to again sound like Christoph Waltz, but expose these people. I want lists of names, Monty. I want to know who were voting for Faker. I need this to be a scarlet letter around their neck for the rest of these sponsors. I'm going to become evil, mate. I'm just sick of it. I've been pushed to the limit. I tried to be an anti-hero. You won't support me as an anti-hero like Batman or the Punisher. Now I'm just going to go evil. I'm becoming full Magneto. I'm Thanos now. It's over.
Hey, Magneto was kind of an anti-hero in his own way.
If you notice, I picked two who in their own way are trying to do the right thing, Monty, but they just kill people because they just can't take it anymore. They've been pushed past a reasonable limit and now they're killing people to achieve their ends. So in terms of reputations, I will kill reputations. I won't kill real people. I would just stay on record.
If you had Magneto powers... I think
mate, it'd be over. It's actually, here's the thing. That's where I am humble, Monty. I'm humble enough to know it's good that I am just a fucking pleb who watches video games. You know what I mean? Like, I could actually be dangerous in like the political world or something. If I ever had powers, mate, it'd be over for everyone. I can't lie.
Well, we pray Thorin doesn't ever mutate. I do want to bring. I can't
even lie, Monty. One thing I've always fucked with about like H.P. Lovecraft type stories is I do understand the appeal of being like, but how can I access this power? Like I can get that. That is appealing. The idea
everybody can understand that.
Of course, that's the dope part. That's not scary. That's awesome. Of course, you want to get fucking some elder god just touches you and grants you some fucking telekinetic power or some shit. Of course, I'd be all over that.
I'm glad you mentioned that Caedrel had the balls, because I'm going to use that, as in Caedrel's balls, to advertise for Manscaped. And, Caedrel is definitely not an incel, and neither are you, which means that you might need Manscaped.
That's like a public girlfriend. He seems like a pretty chill guy as well. It seems like a kind of outrageous thing to say. In many ways, Monty, but I agree. Keep going. And also, our audience aren't, so yeah, they might need this.
And our audience isn't either. So definitely sometimes it can pay, because you and Caedrel are definitely not incels, to groom yourself down below out of the thoughts for your significant other, right? Looking as svelte as you can in the bedroom. But not only the balls, but also the beard. And right now, Manscaped is doing a beard and balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra and the Beard Hedger. So, great Christmas gift as well. You guys can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code LFN at manscaped.com. So the lawnmower, of course, is the one that is very gentle on your nether regions. You can use it in the shower, which makes cleanup very easy. And the beard hedger is great because, of course, you can clip it to 20 different lengths with the zoom wheel, so you can get it exactly the way you like it. It is also waterproof with 60 minutes of runtime. So there you go, guys. Join the 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped to stay sharp this holiday season. Get the Beard and Balls bundle today and slay your grooming routine. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code LFN at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code LFN at manscaped.com, because Santa isn't the only one who needs his sack well groomed this year. Amazing copy, Manscaped. That's a good one. So, because like Caedrel, you are not an incel, despite what people on the internet might tell you. This might be something that will be of use to you.
I'll give you two angles, because obviously people mainly know the lawnmower for like doing the grooming on the balls, etc., and all that chat. They know like the creams and the. Here's the one that I would actually recommend. The two I would recommend is one, they have this interesting one. It's like the scalp buffer that you run to like stimulate the hair and all that, which actually, by the way, is useful for people. And then the other one, I think a really underrated one, especially, I'm going to give this to the boomers. If you're over about 25, one of the downsides of getting to be not just a young pop anymore is it's not a meme. Actually, hair does grow out of your ears and your nose. It's a real thing. And eventually one day you'll have that day where you go, oh, I've got something caught in my nose, and there's just a really long hair. Like that weed whacker thing also has the tech where it never clips you. You can put it really close inside the skin. And so as a result, it's really effective at cutting all that away. And then you're just back to your youth. You can transform back to being the young man with short hairs in the nose. By the way, I just realized, Monty, the point I wasn't going to make earlier, it's because you said about the Faker of the Year award. I also made the mistake of earnestly and passionately trying to make a reasonable point. Well, that doesn't fly in esports. It's a shithead influencer culture of Gen Alpha. So what I should do is this, Monty. I need to use the power of mockery and satire. So here's what you do. If the reasons are, because remember, player of the year would be like, were you the best player? Were you the best player in the world? Were you the best player in your game? Were you the best player in your region? Were you the best player in your team? You'd have to be all these things to be player of the year, right, Monty? So I was trying to point out, Faker isn't the best one in T1. He's not the best one in Korea. He's not the best one at Midland. He's not the best one in esports. He's not the best one in any of these things. So, but we're giving him player of the year. So here's what you need to do. You need to actually realize that when the arguments don't make sense, you have to lead into it. You know the whole thing of like, ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. You have to be like that. When they give you a stupid answer, you have to make a stupid response. So I'll give you an example. When I go, but Faker wasn't even the player of the year. Yeah, but he won Worlds, right? That's not actually a thing about how he played. Then you go, yeah, but he wasn't actually like the best player of the year in esports. Yeah, but he's the most influential, right? Those logically, Monty, would apply to awards that aren't actually League of Legends. So that's why Faker is the CS player of the year. You're going to think we just didn't play CS, but he's the most influential, though. Look at the impact he's had on esports. Yeah, but he's not even the best player in League. Yeah, but he just won. He's the LEC player of the year because he won Worlds. At the end of the day, bro, Caps, who's won the most LEC titles, says he only started playing League because Faker won Worlds back in Season 3. So he now gets credit for all that the Caps did. He's also the player of the year. In fact, you know what, Monty? I'll go one further than your award. Do you know who should win the not Faker of the Year award? Faker, because he won Worlds, bro. He's so influential that even the award's named after not him. So in many ways, he's the not Faker of the Year, even though he's Faker. And you know, simultaneously, Monty, he should also win Faker of the Year. And then also, thirdly, he should win the mutually exclusive, can't simultaneously be Faker of the Year and not Faker of the Year. He should also win that. Do you know why? Because at the end of the day, why are you hating on him? It's just an award. It's not a big deal. It's fucking insane. No, it's out. Actually, insanely annoying, my stupid retorts that they get. That's what you're doing us over the real award, you fucking idiots. He should just be every award. He should be fucking producer of the year, host of the year. You know what I mean? It's everything. He's everything. You know what I've just realised, Monty? I fucked up. Faker is esports. I thought I was. It's Faker. It was Faker all along. And how dare I imply I'm part of Faker? That's my ultimate sin. I'm not an atom in the body of God. I'm just a fucking pleb watching the afterbirth, and I go, oh, Faker. But you know the worst thing of all, Monty? Well, it's the way they act like, they gaslight us so much, Monty. They act like them, the lifelong T1 stand, literally decked out in T1 gear. Actual profile picture on Twitter, a T1 player. Banner, something of T1 or log or a T1 player. Every tweet about T1. Pinned tweet probably like, hey, remember that time Order put his head on Kerry's shoulder? They'll have that. They'll gaslight us. They're not the biased one on who should win. Are you ready? Player of the year. They wouldn't have like an undue bias. But you ready, Monty? Monty. We don't just sit and watch League of Legends and see who the best is. We're the dick sucker glazers of Jovian Night. We're the fans. It's actually, after all that money, it was us who were the fanboys all along. And it was the T1 stands who could rationally look at the world and apprehend who's better in spite of their own feelings. I can't handle this. This gaslighting is fucking insane. It's insane, bro. It's insane.
I also think there's part of this because you pointed out earlier that the awards didn't exist many years ago, right?
I think 2016. Yeah, they started
right. And so the point is that they missed a lot of Faker's prime career years when he literally would have won all of these, and T1 would have won all of these.
He even would have won in the legit way. Like, he would have been. By the way, here's what's sad, Monty. You know why? You know one thing I really get burned when Faker fans talk shit on me like that is I had so many fucking battles, Monty, with people from games like CS and Dota who think League is a shit game for little kids. And they would be like, well, how good could Faker be? Who gives a fuck about League? And I'd have to explain to them, bro, you know, Faker might actually be better than Simple. Like, not really. Like, I'd give it to Simple. But I always told them, Simple never had to play against, like, a massive, like, tens of millions of Korean and Chinese people, did he? Like, we'll never actually know. It would be like if we only had Europe in League, Caps would be the GOAT, wouldn't he? But what if Faker was there the whole time? What if Chovy was there the whole time? So in the years when Faker would have won, Monty, 2013, 2015, etc., he would actually have been the GOAT of all of esports. He would have been the PC player of the year, and it would have actually accurately told esports history that even if you think League is worse than CS, he is better than Olaf Meister, he is better than Get Right or whatever, because the game itself, the scale of it, so much bigger, the accomplishment, so much. That would actually, notice how that would have set history sort of correct in a way. It would have actually been a great record, wouldn't it? He would have deservedly won all those years.
Yeah.
And ironically, biggest irony of all, Monty, do you know what year he probably would have won for real the last award? The one where he didn't win Worlds, the one on season 7 where he got 3-0 in the final. That would have been his last year, and that would have told the historical record what actually happened, which is that was him at the end of his carry power when T1 wasn't quite good enough, and then he had transitioned out of it.
He would have won that year.
Yeah, he would have won like 1 year. He would have won essentially where he had like a year like Knight did now, bro, and everyone's saying, of course, Knight can't win. He just had a better year than Faker did that year. You idiot. Well, he didn't win MSI, I guess, so fair enough, whatever.
But I mean, like 2017, nobody would have said Samsung was player of the or team of the year. It would have been T1 still that year, even though they lost Worlds. And that, I think, is a very reasonable opinion. And Faker was extremely good that year. And the only reason his team even made the finals that year was because Faker was playing out of his mind at Worlds. Yes. So, but this is all to say, I think it's like the Academy Awards when they just give people random awards for like all their career, basically. So even though they show up to that year with maybe not the best film that they've ever done, those films that now in retrospect look really good, like Scorsese's obviously, you know, pretty famous for this, but it's like you then get the award later for something that wasn't even close to your best work because it's almost like, you know, oh shit, we fucked up and we didn't recognize you at the time. So these awards all didn't exist, is the point, during a lot of Faker's prime. But now it feels like people want to give him these awards that he never could have gotten because the awards shows didn't exist and therefore weren't able to recognize him at the time. Because people do have voter fatigue, Thorin, and I do wonder if there was something like, oh, Faker already has, you know, 4 PC Player of the Year awards. Are we really going to give him another one for this year where he wasn't even at his best? It really changes people's mind, especially on panels, about voting for stuff like that. Which sometimes is unfortunate because MVPs don't get MVPs even though they're still the best player because people don't want to vote for them again. But in this case, I think it provides the right context of, well, he was great this year, but was he really great compared to the other times we gave him this award? But he just hasn't won it as many times. So
I also think as well, the reason why the Chovy angle is an interesting one, still potentially that he could have won the award, is because that would also actually tell the year a lot better. Think about this, Monty, right? Imagine if you only voted for NFL MVP after the Super Bowl. Well, the year that you're going to remember very well when the Broncos defense won. By the way, if Cam Newton doesn't get to be MVP because he played shit in the Super Bowl, that actually doesn't tell that year right. He was unreal that year until that Super Bowl. It was only the Super Bowl he fucked up. He was, if people don't know, he was smurfing. He was doing everything you like about Lamar Jackson now, he was doing back then, mate. He could throw it. He was running it in a million times. They were fucking really sick offensively. So in a weird way, Monty, don't you see how him winning the MVP, but then not winning the finals, one, is accurate. He was the best player, except that one game. But then two, it actually properly puts in context the scope of what the Broncos did by winning that final. Because now you know you actually did beat what in theory was the best team and the best player in the NFL. Like that if you're defense, that's even better for you. You just took out the MVP.
It also puts into context Von Miller's Super Bowl MVP for that, for shutting down, he being the primary player who is a pass rusher who shut down Cam Newton and forced 2 fumbles in that game, and that led to scores, right? And so without Von Miller, who had an unreal game, he was taking out the regular season MVP.
Here's the League of Legends 2024 version of that. So it's 10 years from now, Monty. It's 2034, and someone's just gotten into League, which I'm pretending like people in Riot Global one. It's still a massive game, and LCS not shit's real still. So I'm getting into League.
Season 40.
Yeah. I'm looking back on the years back, and I'm looking up this Chovy guy. Imagine, Monty, what I find is, Chovy was player of the year in 2024, but his team didn't even make the finals or win worlds. How? That actually starts me on a journey with an accurate initial thing of so he was really good individually, but something went wrong. Well, that's actually is what happened that year. That's appropriate. Instead, like I say, if you look on that wiki site and it says Faker, player of the year, T1 team of the year, your logic would be, the reason Chovy didn't win worlds is he wasn't on the best team and he wasn't the best player. It actually won't make sense. It will give you the opposite impression of history. There we go. And also, I said this to you before we started. If you're a Faker fan and you're trying to act like LCK doesn't matter, one, that's convenient since you have one LCK title in 3 years. And then secondly, Faker is the player with far and away the most LCK titles in history. You are a moron if you are undercutting that. You could actually argue that since Worlds actually has way more luck to it and who else qualified, LCK is the most consistent one you can win by just being excellent. That actually is the base of Faker's greatness is his LCK kingdom. It's the 10 LCK. By the way, that is insane.
With different teammates and everything too over the years. It's nuts.
Think about how many different, he had entire rosters that were just completely rebuilt, and then he came back and won it. That's way better than just winning 1 or 2 worlds. Yeah.
The funny thing about this too is that he's actually won more titles with other teammates, like the same group of teammates that he has with his current group of teammates that people want to say is the best roster of all time. They've literally won 1 title together in LCK, and LCK, especially back in the era of Faker's Prime, was legitimately harder than Worlds because Worlds was a scrub tournament. I mean, the competition that was present in Korea at the beginning of Faker's career was far more intense than it was at the World Championship. This is before the rise of a lot of these Chinese teams. And basically, the qualifiers for Worlds and the process for qualifying for the World Championship was actually harder than winning Worlds. And there were probably other Korean teams that would have been able to win Worlds without SK Telecom's presence. I don't think you could look at Faker's first World Championship and say, well, if SK Telecom didn't win, who would have won? We know it was Najin Blacksword. That was basically the de facto finals in the semifinals of that World Championship. And I think it's really clear that Najin would have won that World Championship had SK Telecom not existed. And as we go down, obviously,
my
2014,
God. Just imagine the world, Monty, where I don't know, I think in game 5 of that series is the one where he played Oriana and outplayed them and Najin, etc. I'm just imagining an Oriana ball misses by a pixel. Faker doesn't win game 5. Nagne is now the season 3 world champion. That's I'm Back to the Future 2 to you there, Monty. You've woken up what the fuck? Is Faker still here? Yeah, but actually Nagne became the GOAT. I don't even remember Nagne, bro. I mean, I'm pretty sure actually when Faker did that Riven dodge on him, he did just end his whole career when he sidestepped that fucking Cassiopeia. You could just, you know what, Nagne, off to the fucking glue factory for you, mate. It's over. He's actually outhands your soul right now, bro.
I think in the same way that he ended Ryu's career, he did end Nagne's career as well.
Yes.
And that was the greatness of Faker, guys. The heights, you guys want to pretend that he's on these highs now. The highs that he had, he would literally just play people in finals and then ruin them forever. It was crazy. It's
I don't think people realize in that era, you're going to think think, oh, in that era, Riven it wasn't even there then, and he was playing it mid. It wasn't like top. He was playing mid.
Played it before.
And he was playing it when like it could only be viable if you could do like all the insane combos. You had to have like mega hands, and he just actually gapped like an actual real top LCK mid. Yeah, it's mad.
People would suffer just crazy psychic damage from playing Faker in finals. He would devastate their minds until the end of time, right? That he doesn't do that anymore, guys. Nobody's career is in free fall because he played Riven for the first time against them and absolutely styled on them in a way that they mental boomed that they could never, ever, 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 ever come back from, right? He just lives inside their brains forever. The plebs like, no, but he did, Monty. You remember that clip where he was on Silas and Chovy was on Ari? That was just like some good lane trading, you fucking idiot. We're talking about he actually was doing like fucking like world, like Thanos snap moments that just like end people. People just go, people basically just finish the game and go, why do I even bother? I should just quit the game. I'll never be good. Yeah, you're right. You just dispirit. There was some Michael Jordan shit. You're right. You were just like the joke is forevermore. Half these fuckers are just in a bar somewhere in Seoul, Monty. Like, hey, buy a guy a drink. I'll tell you a story about a time I used to be good at League. You know, like fake it. Yeah, I used to know him. Like, oh, don't remember you? Yeah, one of his victims. Just some loser in the bar. Like, that's their life is just defined by him clapping them. You're right. You are right. So that was the glory of Faker. And that's what I like to remember, as opposed to what people tell me these days to remember for some reason.
Well, no,
it's not for some reason. It's because they weren't actually there. None of these people were actually there.
Before they give the award, if you go back to the episode that is the one right after the World's Finals, if we don't muddy this with some stupid shit of saying he's the best player in the world, I actually thought the way he played in the finals was fucking insane in Game 4. I told you, Game 5 might actually be, like, contextually one of the greatest moments in the history of esports. Like essentially, like a player who had no business, like, winning a world championship 11 years later, just rocks up and actually did out-hands and out-think and out-maneuver the best players in the world. Remember, in that fight these are the best, most cracked, peak level players now. That's insane. So we could glaze those moments. But again, for the whole year, I'm counting when he played D+ in the regional and when he played. Also, by the way, this is how slimy these fucks are, Monty. Because they know if it was just Worlds, they're DRXing it, aren't they? And they can't do that because they hated on DRX and Zika. So everyone magically now, Monty, really counts EWC just because T1 won it. Bro, if Gen G won that, they were all going to see it. By the way, we said it didn't count.
It doesn't matter. It was a Mickey Mouse bracket.
We said this before it was even played when everyone thought Gen G would win. We said it doesn't count. Obviously, it's not part of the real tournament. Look, it's cool. Like, I'm glad it happens. I'm with you. I want to see it. I want to see the matches. Maybe we have an awesome game. It was pretty dope watching like some of the like T1 fucking TL was dope on it, but it's not. It doesn't count as part of the circuit. Also, are you really going to tell me LCK doesn't count, but EWC does? Bro, they were best of threes in all the matches till the final. LCK's at least best of 5. That's a crazy take. Why are we pretending EWC counts? Come on, guys. Come on.
Because it's convenient. That's the reason. I mean,
by the way, I'll make a prediction right now, Monty. Obviously, everyone else can just claim after the fact and retcon what they wanted the reasons to be. These are my principles, Monty. If next year in 2025, Chovy isn't the best mid laner and he doesn't win any LCK, and he doesn't win MSI, he doesn't win. Let's even say, fuck HWC, you can win it or not. If he wins Worlds only and he isn't the best player, I won't say he's the player of the year. So anyone good? You just said Chovy, I won't say he's the player of the year if he does that. By the way, that's what I don't even get, bro. Here's what's mad about this, Monty. I'm the only person in League not allowed to like people. Like when I say I like Frog and I think he's the 4th best mid laner, they act like I just said he's the best mid laner. Do you know what I mean? Like, so what I don't get is when Flame didn't win anything, did I ever say he was like the best player to ever play League? No, of course not. It's the other way around. We're actually the ones who were willing to take the fucking L when I would play 60L. So same with Knight. By the way, if you notice now, I haven't said Knight's the player of the year. I mean, he only lost 2, like, fucking, 3 best of 5s or something the whole year. Like, it's pretty good. And he also played awesome. But he wasn't the player of the year, was he? Chovy was better than I saw with my eyes. Bin was better than I saw with my eyes. Like, I don't need to make some convoluted, yes, but they did win the most important one. No, I saw the way they played. So if next year Chovy does a DRX Zika, I won't say he's the player of the year, I'll tell you that. And they won't be the team of the year. So I'll hold to that. I'll put that on record now. Or Knight, or whatever, any of them.
And it is very frustrating to have these kind of situations where you know, it's, I really don't like when we get to these points where the narrative just like overtakes.
By the way, you actually addressed it earlier, but don't you even find that weird? Because a lot of even experts now are sort of agreeing like this T1 lineup is the GOAT lineup. Here's what I don't get, Monty. Obviously, if you had a conversation who was the GOAT lineup, they'd have to be initially included because they've got the 2 worlds back to back. That alone and the 3 worlds finals, that would get you in the conversation immediately because you have to like everyone who has the initial consideration. But the problem I have with that one, Monty, is the eye test doesn't check out. Do you know what I mean? Like, when I think of the greatest teams ever, I'm seeing the most insane league ever played. That's not what this team did. This team won by fine margins and clutch played. So, like, mate, Samsung White or the fucking... You think of the greatest teams ever, bro. There's some really crazy teams. I mean,
JDG last year.
You could go back to some old T1 teams that used to be fucking amazing too, yeah.
I mean, we talked about the greatest teams last year with Dom, and we kind of all agreed that last year's JDG, in spite of losing to T1, because if you look at the actual body of work throughout the entire year, it really is just the eye test about how this team played League of Legends as well, and the level that they were playing on. You know, losing 1 best of 5 in the entire year doesn't mean that they weren't the most consistent roster. Like the high, it had the highest average play of any roster in history. Or, you know, if you really want the peak route, you could take Samsung White. That was, by the time they reached Worlds in 2014, they were so far ahead of the game compared to anybody else. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous how far ahead they were. So I think like that is it. You could make a lot of arguments, but I don't think you look at this edition of T1 because they've had very high highs. I mean, you look at spring 2022 and spring 2023, and they were incredible during those splits.
Yeah, it was real. They were far away the best. Yeah,
but you know they haven't won MSI. They've won 1 out of 6 LCK splits, and they've lost the worlds that they should have won, and then they won 2 worlds that they should have lost.
Yes,
would be how I would describe it. I mean, they came in as the favorite last finals as well, but they weren't like pre-tournament favorites or anything like that. Whereas I think they would have been with Gen G pre-tournament favorites in 2022 as well. And they definitely should have beaten fucking DRX. That's crazy. And I am surprised, Thorin, that the other narrative to this isn't that the same one that DRX had, because DRX, like T1, made it out as a 4th seed, and it's like, ooh, look at the dark horse coming in. They barely squeaked their way into Worlds. Oh my God, how amazing is it that they're having this glow up? What's so weird to me, Thorin, is we didn't pretend that DRX was supposed to win in 2022, but we are pretending that T1 was anointed as the favorites and should have always won this last year. Whereas we could just tell the story accurately, like, here's a team that caught on fire at the right time and managed to make it from that 4th seed into the top of the standings. And look at all they overcame, and look at Zeka's glow up. We could say, look at Faker's glow up from summer to now. It's huge, his level of improvement. But we don't say that.
See, here's a logical proposition for you. Now, do you want to know the real black pill about this whole topic with T1 fans? Is, you know what it is, mate. They're all like 19 years old. So, spoiler, they weren't watching our shows when Faker was the best, and they weren't watching probably even League when T1 was on top. So here's the real problem, is they have presented a scenario which I actually think history proves can't be true. So what they're saying, Monty, is we just hate Faker and T1 and we will do anything we can to downplay them. Well, you know what, Monty? We've got it all on historical record. You can go to 2022 on this channel and watch any of the VODs of Summoning Insight in 2022 and tell us, when it's in spring, Monty, do we say, of course, even though T1 won, they're not actually that good and, they're all frauds and that, or do we glaze them? And then when they actually almost win Worlds, Monty, do we say stuff like, there's no chance for DRX to win Worlds, T1's the better team? Do we then after the Worlds go, wow, I guess DRX is just better than them, I guess T1... No, in that logic, that year we're T1 glazers. By the way, if you go back to, are you ready? 2015, we would be T1 glazers. If you go back to 2016, we would be T1 glazers. We'd be, and every year, we've proven it. And by the way, here's the biggest joke of all, Monty. Sadly, T1 fans will never get to see this because the T1 org refuses to actually make superstar rosters. But I tell you what, Monty, if their off-season was them announcing this like Gen G lineup, I would be a T1 glazer this upcoming year. That's the most annoying thing. If they actually were the best, it'd be the other way around. We'd be the one never shutting the fuck up talking about them. Because as I say, if you go back to that 2022 spring where they're undefeated, every week is just, here's why T1's amazing and Kerry is a god and what it's Faker doing is like renaissance and, oh my God, this squad's come together so fantastic. Yeah, the whole thing. If you remember that Worlds, when they beat RNG, we were fucking going crazy about Faker, like doing all the outplayers on his ear. Then they had the JDG series where they just beat them all in team fighting. Like, we were going crazy on these fucking guys. The point is, they actually were sick in those years in the way they weren't as sick in these years, unfortunately. So again, I don't think we even need to make this debate, mate. It's on record. We've been proven that in the majority of years when they were good, we were the Glazers, weren't we?
Yeah, even with this roster as well, especially me, by the way, in spring 2022 and spring 2023, I was amazed by the level of play that we were seeing. But
I mean, remember, this is what's so crazy, Monty. We all hate T1. Well, then why would Monty say Kerrier is the best player in the world? Because that was the take in early 2023, right? Remember? Yeah. That was when he was doing all the amazing, like, fucking ADC support shit. Yeah. And he was defining the whole world better. He was unbelievable, wasn't he?
They came into those playoffs and LCK as favorites, too, and they didn't win. Like, Genji staked the win out. Like, Genji was not supposed to win that split. And we've had times when T1 came as the favorite in these finals, and they lost. And to me, back to the point of the greatest roster of all time, unless your sole metric is Worlds wins, it is an amazing accomplishment that they made 3 back-to-back-to-back finals. We'll see if they can do it again. And I think, honestly, if I was a T1 fan and I really believed in the power of T1, shouldn't I just welcome this new challenge as another opportunity to show how Faker is the greatest of all time? Because there will be no greater gem in Faker's crown than winning Worlds in 2025 with Thorin in the top lane. I'll tell you that right now. that will truly be an incredible accomplishment.
Here's what's sad, though, is in theory, I should love that because it means he almost certainly won't win anything this next year, Monty. Like at the end of this year, in 1 year from now, I don't think he's going to have won any LCK, any MSI, any Worlds because he just doesn't have a very good roster. I actually don't like that, you idiots. That's why I can't be a T1 hater. I actually want T1 to be competent. Like if it was actually up to me, by the way, you would have had something like maybe Zeus goes to Handwife, but maybe Kane does come to T1. That would be interesting. Sure. How would that work? That would make an incredible parity. By the way, Gen G's got plenty enough, mate. They'd still have Canyon, fucking Ruler, and Chovy. Like they'd still be cooking with gas, wouldn't they? They could probably even do with Thorin at this point in time. It might even be better for Chovy if he tries to win Worlds with Thorin for the aforementioned reason. So I actually think this offseason's worse. The joke is, in a fucked up way, even though I want to see Zeus and Ham alive, I think it sucks that T1's going to be irrelevant now. I don't want them to actually suck. I want them to have a chance. I don't think they're the best team. I don't know why that has to be one or the other. I don't get it. I don't get it, mate.
But yeah, that's why the T1 winning awards issue is all fraught and tangled now, to put this to bed a little bit, because it is frustrating for people who care about history, and many of our fans do as well, that this like continues to happen. So best of luck to Caedrel and the League Awards for next year. I do hope they continue. Obviously, some modification is necessary.
Also, I'm just going to do that thing where I don't actually say an opinion I don't believe, but I'll just say a fact that fucks with fans. So every time T1 fans get mad, I'm going to go, why are you getting mad at Thorin? He won 4 of the last 5 LCK splits with 2 different teams. He's better than you guys. What are you talking about? Look, you can't argue with numbers, guys. He's got all the medals. Where are all your medals?
Thorin has the,
in fact,
head.
T1 is letting Thorin down. He used to be a champion when he used to play before, but when he joined T1, his level got dragged out.
Yeah, he beat T1 in 2 best of 5s.
It's true. It is true. Yeah. Right, I will say it wasn't him doing anything, but it did happen. It did happen. Doesn't matter. Wins a win, boys. I've been told that Knight could never be better than Faker if he loses to Faker.
Just forget that Camille game that Thorin had in the finals. Just forget it.
Also, do you want to know an example, Monty? I'll give you a very quick one before we go off this topic. I'll give you a very quick example that is really annoying to me. There's a concept that is really counterintuitive to fans. They can't get their head around it, Monty. So I'll give you a very simple example, and you'll be able to get it. Not least, you're not even a tennis fan, so this will immediately make sense to you. Right? In tennis, when Federer and Nadal were the main rivals, because Federer initially was the one who was winning everything, and then Nadal came along, what happened was, initially, Nadal's strength was mainly just playing playing on the clay court, right? And at the time, the premise was he was the best clay court player and Federer was the second best. So as a result, he used to beat Federer in all the clay court finals. And then Federer in general was perceived to be better on grass than the hard court, right? Now, what's funny is even though over history, there were the odd times Nadal played him on Wimbledon or hard court and still won against him a few times. This is what's counterintuitive to a fan, right? Because Nadal was easily the best clay court player, Monty, but Federer was second best on clay. That meant Federer still kept turning up to lose a final each time on the clay court. But when Nadal wasn't as good on the hard court, sometimes he wouldn't even make the final and then Federer would win the final. Can you see where I'm going? That means that by default, the head-to-head's always going to be insanely towards Nadal because essentially Federer always meets him on his best surface and loses, but then Nadal doesn't return the favor. He just loses in the quarterfinals and doesn't make the final, and then Federer gets to it. So even though Federer's winning, he's not getting to increase the head-to-head, even if he might have been the better player. I'll give you an example of how this year that ruins all the narratives. Because this year, when in the Worlds, Gen G lost to T1, that proves Faker's goated, right? Faker didn't turn up to lose to Gen G at MSI. He had 2 chances. Why didn't he turn up? Because he lost to BLG, right? So you get the premise. Like, he would have lost 2 series to trophy potential. He never turned up to those matches. So we never get to even see those matches. That means you actually get to look like you're better by not doing as well in the tournament. It might sound counterintuitive, but that's actually how shit narratives are in League. We get so few chances to meet that Faker actually ends up looking better by not winning against BLG. That's so stupid. And by the way, notice none of us are even mentioning that he lost to BLG those times. That never happened. By the way, MSI, we're actually just memory holding the entire event. It never happened, bro. That wasn't the event, remember, where TL for real looked like they could beat fucking T1. Gen G, G2 almost twice beat T1, and then T1 just got easily beaten by BLG twice. It wasn't even the best team in the world. All that event, in memory hall, the whole thing didn't matter, didn't count, just means nothing. Even though, are you ready? Second prediction. If next year the only event T1 won was MSI, suddenly MSI would be mega important again, I imagine. I imagine the results would be important, the direct head-to-head would be important, the wins would be important.
The format as being more competitive, therefore it's more meaningful than Worlds.
Worlds needs to swap to this MSI. They'll take all of our opinions, mate. They'll launder it all. They'll do it all, I can tell. These shameless fucks. But anyway, that's enough complaining about Faker. We're only an hour in. It's all good. And, we forgot to actually just briefly mention the drama. What did you think of that, Monty? Because I've been making fun of it, but I actually think that's really sad. There's one of those moments, mate, where I feel like if you're someone like Caedrel, I don't know how you win, mate. Like, I've always said this, there's certain people it just proves in esports you're never allowed to win. Sjokz is an example, by the way. Sjokz does almost nothing that could ever actually cause drama or get you hate. But if you ever read, there'll be loads and loads of nice comments, but there's always all the same people being horrible to her and telling her stupid shit and evil shit. So it's like, if you're Caedrel, what sort of incentive is this? Hey, guys, I'm going to foot the bill and put on a giant award show and do essentially an epic podcast with all the people. And I'm even going to get the actual, by the way, here's a hard thing people underestimate. I'm going to get the people who win the awards to even come and want to acknowledge the awards. That's really hard. I'm going to get all of this. I'm going to do it all for everyone. But what's that? You don't like my personal opinion, even though indeed your player did win the award. I can't take it away from him. He has won. But because I've said I don't think he should have won, I'm a piece of shit incel. And we're all going to burn this place down. Like, what? That is so fucking obnoxious. Come on.
Yeah, I think the reaction against Caedrel has been absolutely bizarre. And when you look at it, I mean, this is something that he and Sjokz and other people are clearly trying to build up, and people are making an appearance at these awards, and even if they can't be there in person, they are at least sending custom videos for them to play during these segments. I mean, I really like the production too. They have the main host on the couch, people can pop in, you have like the shots of the bar and people mingling. Like, it feels like an exclusive fun event that people get a look into.
Monty, unironically, it felt like actually what we might have done if you ran an LFL Awards. We'd do something similar to this. It'd be all about the broadcast and keeping it fun vibes and shit. It had a Flashpoint feel to it. I thought it was dope.
Reminded me of my wedding broadcast, actually, as well.
No, it was actually quite similar, True. People's milling in and coming into the couch, all that. Yeah, true.
It reminded me of the way that I broadcast my wedding. But I think when you look at it, they invited me to come. I wasn't able to go, but when I see that, I'm like, man, I wish I would have been there. Would have been fun to have gone. Maybe I think about going in the future if I had the availability to head out to Europe during that time. I think they got a really nice vibe going on, and I think it was something special for the community and for the community to spit in Caedrel's face, where it's not like he Kanye Wested it and like came on stage and like tried to wrestle the award away or delegitimize it. In the award, they gave it to Faker and T1. And then later on, he said,
it's like they did a video call with Faker. And he goes, Faker, you won the award. I don't think you should have, like, you fucking shit.
Exactly.
They make it seem like he did that, bro. I know, you know what I mean?
So I think, him issuing his opinion on his own stream about who he voted for and what he thought, and then this backlash and personal attacks are just outrageous. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I feel bad for him because it must really suck to have such a negative reaction. And I hope he hears some good, some positive reinforcement on this, because I think that the actual idea and execution behind the show, especially for a first time, was very good. And I hope it continues. And he should be praised for doing this. He doesn't have to do this shit, guys. He doesn't have to do this shit. That's that. And now cue the inevitable comments about how we talk too much about T1 fans, even though we were talking about actually legitimacy of the awards and why this matters in terms of the historical context. And also, this video is timestamped, and you can just skip all of that if you want to. Well, there's going to be more to this show. Shocking.
The reason why the Esports Awards and the theory of that is essential. It's because, as you say, the problem is right now we're in the moment. We all remember this year. We all remember all the best things that happened this year. We all remember all the cool people who were the best. But the point is, over time, those memories will fade. And actually, the way memory works is you need something that's a trigger, an anchor point to remind you of it. And then once you get reminded of an initial memory, could be an image, could be a person, suddenly all the other memories come back. That's the way it works. So actually, our upcoming sponsor, Monty, would be an excellent example of that, because if you want to keep your great memories and celebrate them and share them with the ones you love, and then spread great enjoyment of all the best times and people you know, how about Aura Frames? This is the one that we've talked about previously. This is going to be nearly all an entirely authentic ad if people don't know, because this company is actually one where Monty already knew about it before we actually got the sponsorship. It's how we actually inquired, would they be interested in sponsorship? Because it's actually just something where I will say, I think it is the most wholesome product we have ever promoted on this show. I think there is no cynical downside to it. And I actually, unironically, I've said on past episodes, think it's almost like a revolutionary upgrade of a piece of tech I didn't think needed upgrading. Because you think to yourself, well, picture frame, that's okay. If you want a nice picture, only boomers do that anyway. They have the physical picture. In the modern day, who needs a picture frame? We've all got Instagram, we've got cloud services, we've got our phone, we can all take 1 million pictures. But the problem is, you don't tend to just sit down and go, hey, let's flick through my gallery and look at all photos. It's actually why, if you notice, by the way, a feature a lot of people like on modern phones is that one that goes like 5 years ago, this happened, and reminds you of something, like a random picture from your phone. A lot of people like that. Well, you can be the curator of that type of experience for yourself and your loved ones, because the great thing about this digital frame is it all works through the internet. So what you do is, once you set up the cloud with the photos in, first of all, you can just add photos to that and get it to set up so it'll automatically go into the frame. But you can also do, instead of one physical picture, you can do essentially almost unlimited. Depends on the actual memory size and how big the photo, but you can do hundreds and hundreds of photos. You can have all the settings you imagine. Does it stay static? Does it switch every 10 seconds, every minute, whatever you want the thing to be? And I always say this, first of all, it's a great gift for yourself, because just program in there all the people you love, all the things you enjoy, by the way, if you're an esports fan, program in the time you went to LEC or LCS, or when you had a meet up with your friends, or you went to Korea and went to fucking LCS. Yeah, by the way, if you're a T1 fan, unironically, put in the picture of Owner with his head on Kenny's shoulder, and then the picture of Bang streaming and Coleman's running in or whatever. Do all that stuff. Do it all. Bengi coming in for Blank. Have it all on there. Have all the PC Player of the Year awards that he won. Remember all the good times. Then basically, but I also do think the best person, I actually think for our audience, this is an awesome Christmas gift for literally your girlfriend, your wife, your mom, your dad, or your grandma or your granddad. And the reason why is a lot of boomers obviously aren't particularly up on tech, but this is so easy to use and set up. And crucially, once you've set it up at their house, assuming they have internet. You can control it all from there. So it's actually, for someone like Monty, I can see why Monty bought it. The genius is if he has grandparents on 2 different continents and he has young children, instead of it being like every year when they meet up for one of them, or 6 months when he comes back and having to go, right, wait, remember, shit, they didn't see all the stuff that happened. I better get out the photo album. No, that's all tech. What he can do now is they just have one of these frames. And when Susie takes a picture of his kid when it's like 8 months old or whatever, that just goes into the frame immediately. So now Monty's mom, when she wakes up, just gets to see that in the frame. She doesn't have to go, oh, how's Orion do it? Like, it's actually a dope. I'm being serious. I actually think the tech application is it's a solution I didn't know anyone needed, but it's actually dope. Like I've said this, even myself, people might think I'm only sentimental about esports. I do it myself when I walk past this frame. I have one program with loads of pictures from the last few years. And when I see stuff on there from like 4 years ago, or things from my, like, it actually is like really cool to sort of get reminded of that. Like, oh, I forgot we even took that picture. It's actually mega wholesome. So I think for a Christmas gift, I think this is actually awesome. I think it's one where it's just like all upside. And I also think most of these people in the categories I'm describing would just love this gift. I think they would think it's a really actual, like, fucking, I think they would consider it really wholesome themselves and think like they would have an appreciation for you wanting to enrich their life. So by the way, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling carver mat frames using promo code, it's obvious, summoning, isn't it? You know how to spell that, at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code summoning. This deal is exclusive to our listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply.
And I also want to point out, this is not a subscription service, which is really crucial. So it's not like you have to pay for cloud hosting. You buy the frame and it's just hosted through them on the cloud forever on the app. So you don't have to worry about some sort of monthly fee. It is just a one and done purchase. And they are great. As Thorin says, I use this for my family. They love it. Everybody loves it. It's an incredible gift for Christmas.
It's also really hard to like buy like your grandma a gift or your mum a gift. Isn't it? Like, what are they going to like? This is something unironically they will actually like more than even you. I'm telling you, like they will really think this is like a heartfelt gesture that you want to connect with them and share your life. I actually think for real, it's like a dope fucking gift. Yeah.
Yep. It's wonderful. So thanks to Aura. We're psyched to have them on board. Yes. Like Thorin was saying, I bought these for my wife's parents and my parents and us years before we got this sponsorship, and we've been using them the whole time.
To get another free one. I just want the bigger one for free now, but if not, I'll buy it. But I'm trying to get it for free if I can, boys. It's too good.
There you go, guys. So thanks to Aura.
Wait, as a gag in the future, if we're still sponsored by him next year, Monty, I'll agree to do this. I think it'll be funny. I'll set up one where I'll film like a fake thing in my bedroom, and I'll do it like that. I'll set up an Aura frame, but it'll be all like, you know, flame and fucking when Faker lost the finals of Worlds. It'll look like as though that's like what my actual office is like, you know, like as though that's like day fallen losing or something. I'll make that just a stupid skit. It'd just be funny, wouldn't it?
I think what we should do, Thorin, is set up an esports photos, like greatest photos of all time, and then anybody can link their frame to the greatest esports photos of all time, where we curate it.
That would actually be dope. For real, that actually would be cool, wouldn't it? Yeah, like have like the picture of like OG winning TI or whatever. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, that actually would be a good idea.
Only it's the actual esports GOAT playlist that you could put on your frame. Only, and you know, for the 4Play one, it's like only good movies, just movie posters of the best movies.
By the way, you actually just made me realize also you don't have to just put it to yourself. You actually could do that, by the way. Like another thing I hadn't even thought of, Monty, is you actually could, if you want, just program this with artwork. You could have like a bunch of Monets going into a Picasso and a Matisse. You could do that if you wanted. That would be kind of cool too.
That's why I said last week, just give it to your friend and then just put stupid memes on it and just have a shared meme folder.
Yeah. Yeah, but wait, I hadn't even thought of that application. If you're like a bunch of students in like a fucking shared apartment or a frat house or something, this would probably be hilarious also to put all the memes of the day and some shit of like Joe Biden or falling over or something. All the things everyone's into now would probably be quite funny to put in this. That'd be banter, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So thanks to Aura. And I think we should talk about a player with a definite aura right now, which is Perkz.
I can't believe the guy in the Twitch chat is right. I can't believe we missed the joke that obviously the T1 fan would have oiled up owner in the fucking frame or whatever, like an AI picture generated oiled up owner. Still, I'll never get over. I don't think I've ever recovered from seeing him like that. But it's still such a mental concept in it. I know, like he's actually sexualized his own player in a video game. What even is this?
We should talk about the
Why is he cheating Honor like the horse in a rap video, bro? Like, why is he a fucking jungler, for fuck's sake? It's so mad. It's so mad, Joe Marsh. All I'm saying, Joe Marsh, is listen, haven't you seen what's happening in other industries with veteran people who are in positions of power over young men? Mate, stay away from this one. This isn't going to go well, Joe Marsh.
Yeah, this isn't going well at all. So I do want to talk about the latest Perkz, the episode in the Perkz drama, which, by the way, it did kind of fly under the radar, the whole Perkz stuff when it happened. So I think we can unpack a little bit of that. But now apparently Aranea is saying stuff on Aranea's stream. If you guys don't know, Aranea used to be the old jungler for SK, like way back in the day, 10 years ago. So he is a former professional League of Legends player. He's Spanish. He was quite popular at the time in which he was playing.
I think he did like unofficial coaching for something. Maybe he was with that Origin or something. He was with a few teams over the years where he was sort of like a glue type guy. You know, he like knew all the people. In theory, he was quite a social guy.
So the latest is, and people are saying, well, this is a mistranslation, is basically that apparently he said that Perkz told him that to basically step out and that he wasn't going to be coached by him. Even though he wasn't supposed to be a coach, as I understand it, right, Thorin? He was supposed to be a manager.
It's like a GM or something, yeah.
Yeah, it was the GM, but because he was a pro player and actually does have some amount of league knowledge, and apparently this was some sort of altercation that led to eventually like Perkz being removed from the starting roster, and now Perkz not being on an LEC team. Obviously, of course, Perkz was playing incredibly badly at the time, so perhaps that was the real reason, but we don't know why he was perhaps slumping compared to his previous form. And so now,
which, by the way, is the detail that people miss. I notice most people just open it, skim through, look at what Perkz said, and go to the drama. If you actually even read in the post, it even says that the main coach of their team was it was obviously Peter Dunn. This is where it's all wrong, by the way, because it's not even true. Like Peter Dunn said, actually, my son wasn't born at the time. I wasn't going to fucking Berlin or whatever. Like they got all the facts wrong, but okay. Basically, the premise was Peter Dunn wasn't there to coach initially at the beginning of this split, and so the premise is Aranea, the GM, came in and tried to do it, and then the premise is essentially Perkz didn't accept him as a coach. Now, whether Perkz said it or not, look, it is straight fire if he did indeed say something like, you can't talk to me about the game because I'm a top 3 middler. So, listen, we all know that plays right into the sweet spot of we all love player ego and drama. And low key, that doesn't seem implausible. Perkz might say something like that if you think who Perkz is.
Well, especially Aranea has been out of the game for so long.
Of course, yeah. But that's probably the weirdest thing, Monty. We'd all laugh at those stories of Reggie coming in and going, why aren't you dodging Kaiser Q? And go, what an idiot, why is he there? But Arenea's just doing the same thing, apparently. And then we're all just like, hey, Perkz should listen to him. You know, he has to be respectful and, you know, all that. What a weird story, isn't it? Because the weirdest thing about this story, basically, is the part about Jankos, like, basically saying, like, oh, you shouldn't kick him, though, is this is why I agree with you, it went under the radar. This also was like an equivalent of BDS benching Adam. It's like you actually potentially hurt the team from doing it. The team didn't want this. This is what people wanted to happen, but you've done it to like make a point or something, you know.
Perkz's play was really quite terrible. When you know, by the time that he was removed from the roster, and Perkz also just weirdly has a bunch of haters, as we saw in the
he does,
over the years. For some reason, even though he for many years was the greatest Western player of all time, I think you can pretty safely assume that Caps has overtaken him in that respect by now. But for many years, he was undoubtedly the greatest Western player. And he's been on rosters that have made the World Finals, that have won MSI. Like, the fact that this guy isn't the greatest hero in Western League of Legends alongside Caps is remarkable, but he is just shat on. And it's not that he's been particularly it's not that he's even been particularly spicy in the public sphere. So I don't really understand where these haters come from.
I think one of the biggest reasons for real, Monty, is just literally a resentment that they know he had a giant contract from Cloud9 and then Vitality. I think that's a real thing. People don't know, even in LEC and Vitality, I think even to like recently, I think it was a contract that kept going. He was getting paid millions of dollars. I think people just hate that. I think they're hating on him because it's crabs in a bucket syndrome, bro. You know what I mean? They loved him when he was just some up-and-comer. He was making, probably making like fucking 40K a year or something. But when they know he makes the millions, they just shit on him. Even though bizarrely, we just described it. You ready? Here's an example where you're all hypocrites. You know, in summer when Faker was actually quite fucking mid and wasn't very good, he's getting paid millions and millions of dollars, by the way. He's the highest paid player in his team. I know you're all cool with that, though. It's fine for Faker to play like shit and get paid millions, but if Perkz plays like shit, I don't know, he's a piece of shit. Who knows how that works? I'll never understand it personally. I know he's cocky, but what a weird take.
Yeah, but it's always been, the memes about Perkz' play and kind of his inconsistency at times. But regardless, I mean, this is a guy who's like role swapped and still reached the pinnacle of League of Legends, is undoubtedly a top 3 Western player of all time. I think pretty clearly cemented at number 2.
I mean, shout out for leaving space for Froggen, but yeah, keep going.
I think just the longevity of his career and everything like that has been remarkable. And sure, he didn't have a graceful exit recently, but he has been extraordinary. And I do think that perhaps this was some of the frustration with him for perhaps not playing up to his own standards or having the game pass him by somewhat, which resulted in his current predicament. But I do believe that it is hard to say that he did anything very wrong in this situation, because it sounds like he knows his own game knowledge, trusts himself, and isn't going to put up with people telling him what to do, especially people who are not. He didn't agree to be in this position with Aranea coaching him. So
one thing that does tilt me is people are taking what you just said about the fact that as a mid laner, he wasn't even close to the top in LEC. And they're actually implying Perkz is like a gold player, mate. Do you know what? All the people in these Perkz teams that failed, Monty, when I talk to them privately, tell me he does have insane macro knowledge. And like he essentially is like the coach of the team and just knows better than everyone what to do. Like, Nick, that doesn't mean he's a great laner or that he knows what to do in every matchup. But the point is, essentially their point is in a review, he'd be right most of the time. So they're inferring because as a mid laner, he's not that sick. He doesn't know the game. Like, what a silly take. Again, it'd be like Faker. Faker isn't the best laner anymore, but he might have the best macro knowledge. That's totally fair.
Yeah. And Faker provides, and we could say maybe perhaps that's the more valuable skill set. I think it's totally fair to say that if you can kind
The premise is, Monty, I always tell people this is how it works in Dota 2 now. In Dota, the carries, you just recruit a young stud with hands, and then you make the tactical people like the old veteran support player. Like, that's what you do. So essentially, that's what League's becoming a way. Like, if you look at the success in the last few years, mate, of people like Faker and Xiaohu, you don't have to be the best with your hands anymore. That's not what League's about, actually. It just isn't. Especially if you have the best elsewhere. If you have some stud top laner or ADC, you can get it done as the captain, as the mid laner,
It's also, you can muddle your way through the laning phase, and as long as you don't get smashed super badly, as long as you have the mind for the game and objective control and vision control and setting these traps. I mean, that's what's been remarkable at this T1 roster has been the vision traps, the sneaky barons, the they can see plays that no one else in the world can see, and that makes them surprising and dangerous. So I would argue that the Faker with hands was awesome back in the day, but the knowledge that he has right now, what he can do now, is arguably a more rare and valuable skill. Look at D+, man. They've been trying for years to get some semblance of fucking shot calling into this roster ever since the breakup of the initial, Worlds winning Damwon roster. It's been now 3 years of them being like shit garbage, just actual garbage. And they've never been able to put it together, in spite of the fact that for many of those years, they kept Canyon and Showmaker together, which were the core of the team. And apparently neither of those guys can shot call. So that's why people are hoping that Beryl can bring that back at this, in this coming year. They did make the Casper Cup finals. Not that that means a lot, especially with all the changes to the map coming in and this being kind of played on at the tail end of this year's meta. However, I think that is somewhat of an encouraging sign, at least, but this goes to show just how valuable having a guy like that who is a major shot call in your team can be. I mean, Peanut has had a very similar career arc from being the hands guy to the brain guy. And Peanut's teams don't keep winning LCK for no reason. Peanut changed teams and he won another title on Hanwha this year. We've talked about this in the past, but when it comes to greatest roster of all time, there is a possibility that this Hanwha roster is the greatest roster of all time. It surely is an incredible group of players that Hanwha has put together, and they have a potential. Not to say they're going to do it. Obviously, you can't predict that, but you could look at this on paper and say, holy shit, these guys are good. They have multiple world champions. This is, Zeus coming in his prime into a team that was already on top of the LCK. Zeka's rounded out his game in a big way. Peanut is the brains behind this roster. It looks really, really good. And if anything, the main fault of that Hanwha roster was Thorin. Like, Thorin would just straight up lose them games. You saw that on that fucking Camille game in the finals versus Gen G. He will just solo lose you games. And you can't have that. So getting rid of him and putting in place like a player like Zeus who can solo win you games is an entirely different beast. So not a guarantee that they could, but they will become the best roster of all time. But
to loop it back, this is why even if we all can watch and see Perkz was nowhere near a peak player or the best in the LEC, this is why he might imagine himself to be incredibly important to that team. And he ready, Monty, unkickable. Like in this scenario, think about what Aaron Ayer's even saying. If what Aaron Ayer's saying is correct, that Aaron Ayer made a roster move Aaron Ayer didn't even think he should do for Perkz in the hopes Perkz would respect him and go along with it. It sounds like actually that he's agreeing Perkz is really important. Like Perkz is the piece. So the weirdest part at the end of all of this is what I say about the BDS Adam example. It's like at the end of it all, Aaron Ayer did get to punish Perkz, but did it really even help him? You know what I mean? Didn't it kind of just ruin his own project and everyone else's? Like that's why the Jankos comment. I'm amazed. Here's what I'm amazed by. I'm amazed Aaron Ayer's the one that gives the Jankos comment, because the Jankos comment I think plays really badly. Jankos is basically sort of saying why do we have to let some stupid little argument ruin our team though? Like that's not even some shit in the game. And then to me, Jankos is right. Like in that moment, don't you want to try and fix it? Don't you want to just get back to what you were doing? Instead, it's like the point of no return's been reached for Aaron Ayer, who, by the way, himself he's a fucking red-blooded Spanish guy. He's a really passionate guy who argues with people and gets passionate. And I feel like this is like a temporary flare-up, and then everyone's just allowed it to ruin the whole year. That's the shit where weird. You go, tell you what, that's the thing where you go, this might, you go in this room, you go in that room, then you come back tomorrow and you have cooler heads prevail and you revisit it and you explain, and then Perkz goes, look, I'm sorry I said those things. I respect you as the general manager, but I just think that you shouldn't be in the prac room. And then he's like, well, I'm just here because the coach was. I feel like you could have gotten past this, surely. This is like high school shit, mate. It's so juvenile, the drama on both sides. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also this was a project that I think could have gone well. I think you had pieces that were interesting, and clearly there was some blocker that was preventing Perkz from having a good performance. I don't think this is who Perkz is at his core. It's not what we've seen from his whole career, and he's certainly not old. That's the thing, is he's still a young guy. So I have to believe that he could be individually good. Also,
the leak I heard from this team in this boot camp was that the other part that didn't make sense to people like Perkz was apparently they were winning most of the scrims with. They were doing really well at this boot camp. So it's even implied the roster could have been good. Who knows? Who the fuck knows? I can't know that. Obviously, it's scrims and scrims. They're not scrim box, are they? So.
Yeah, it's just weird because I think the on-paper strength of this roster was still fine, and had cooler heads prevailed and had they been able to work their way through this and maybe address some other issue, because it sounds like this was kind of probably just the tip of the iceberg. Like this wasn't when you guys look at something like this, it rarely happens that this is just in isolation. There's obviously been mounting stress, and this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. But surely there could have been a way to salvage this roster and actually have some decent results.
Monty, this could be that Perkz himself made snide comments every now and then it's built up and Aaron Ayer's just lost his shit and he's done with him. It could even be the other way around. It could be that Aaron Ayer made loads of comments in the past about the game and Perkz just tanked it like those TSM players. And now he's like, well, you just shut the fuck up. You used to be a jungler like 10 years ago. I'm trying to fucking call the macro in the game. Could be that too. By the way, I allow for the potential. Everyone could be a fuck up in this scenario. It's the problem with drama and he said, she said, and who the fuck knows? Who knows? All I'll tell you is, I think the interesting part to me is this. It's implied to me that Peter Dunn himself wasn't happy with this benching, and he is the main coach. I've always found that part a bit weird. I know you didn't survive into the summer after that, etc. But surely the main coach himself should be someone who has a say in the discipline of what's going on. By the way, imagine being Peter Dunn, Monty. Oh, I'm coaching this team. I'm building it. By the way, one of my key pieces I've built this squad around is what, as you just said, might be the greatest Western macro player ever. I go away. Look, it wasn't actually apparently for his kid being born, but it was for something. I think maybe his wife was just pregnant at the time. I think she had health complications or something. I think he said he had to go to Amsterdam. So I go away for an emergency trip. I come back, and your job was basically, Monty, to be like the stand-in coach while my real coach, and you've essentially kicked our main player out of the team. You're the stand-in, bro. I just asked you to watch the pad, and you've thrown the whole food out and made some fucking ramen noodles instead. What are we doing? Imagine me and Peter Dunn walking back, and you walk back, and then remember, they've also made a roster change without you. Because remember, Peter Dunn famously on Twitter was like, we're not making that roster move. And then the roster move did happen, and he was the coach, saying all that publicly. So I think this whole thing, there's so much more going on, I think, behind the scenes on this story than it seems like it says, Monty. Because because it's implied to me it's not just Perkz versus the world. It's like this is like Battle Royale, the old movie from fucking Japan. It's everyone against everyone. It's a fucking no man's. It's a Battle Royale. That's what fucking
banger movie too.
That's what this shit is. Yeah, good reference. Also, I'm not talking about Fortnite, you fucking pleb shitters. Look up Battle Royale, the movie. It's a good movie. You will enjoy it. It's fun. It's fun.
It's a good one. Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I do think more stuff is just going to come out over time about this, because where was the
I almost said out loud, it's sort of like the original Squid Game, and then I felt sick to my own stomach that I was about to say that out loud. Like, I feel dirty. Never mind. Don't even worry about it.
I think it's, more is definitely going to come out about this, and I just have to wonder where the ownership was, because why is your GM doing things without your coach's approval, and there's like public confusion about all of this? Surely the team ownership is partially or mostly to blame for all of this, because you have to step in times like this and make sure that everything is running smoothly, especially when your coach suddenly departs and there are other people being put in charge of the team. You kind of do need to take a more day-to-day operational approach to this team.
I'm just going to put this out there. Also, Monty, you know what? You have to also be good faith about your arguments. If you sign Perkz, and we're not saying just any version of Perkz, if you sign 2024 Perkz, are you telling me in good faith you don't know he might be arrogant? Is that real? Like, what did you think he was going to be like? Like, spoiler, do you think if you sign simple, he might, argue with people and tell them they're trash in practice? What are you talking about? Of course, it's fucking Perkz. Bro, literally, the joke of Perkz is he actually might have traded laning stats for sheer arrogant charisma. He's just pure riz, isn't he? The guy's fucking insane.
But that's what is valuable about him too, is that he has been an excellent team captain in the past.
Yes, exactly.
He actually has been the personality glue guy. So I think undercutting him on that front is also a mistake, because
I'll give you an angle that you might like. Also, it's implied in his teams. They even give him praise for this in G2. This is an example, Monty, as a coach I'd like you to speak to, because I also think there's a problem that happens in games where you almost become designated whiner in the team. Like, I can tell you, if you're on a team with Forgiven, Monty, what happens is, if I'm Modo there, I don't have to complain. Forgiven's going to complain about it. But what it makes it look like is only Forgiven complains. Do you get the point? Yep. So now Modo there doesn't need to complain, and he never gets to look like the bad guy. If you have Perkz, he is going to be all over minor issues like this. He's going to complain about a roster move and how we're playing. And so as a result, it's going to look like Perkz is the diva and the mega. But for all you know, by the way, he might actually sometimes be taking up the slack for someone who's quiet, who doesn't say anything, who doesn't have it, who looks like they're perfect and don't have an issue. That's a real concept in teams, right?
Right. Or even Perkz can be the one who volunteers that because he's the captain of the team. And if somebody comes to him on the roster and says, hey, I've got this problem with this other player, Perkz might say, look, don't cause an issue. That's going to cause a rift in the team. How about I try and address this instead? Of course, this stuff happens all the time.
Sure.
Yeah, I think
because I'm just thinking of when you were in that team of CLG, they did the same thing to Doublelift Monty. They made it sound like it was only Doublelift who was a lunatic and arguing and complaining about, and everyone else was some perfect innocent schoolboy who never. And it's like, no, the difference is Doublelift was mega vocal about it, so he just ended up being the one who took all the shit for it, and he looked like the bad guy, right?
You also say you use the words mega vocal. Maybe in comparison to his teammates of people who were like hardcore introverts, like Aframu, and Link.
Sure,
like Nien. But I mean, I don't like Doublelift very much, guys. So I would dunk on him if if I could dunk on him right now, I would. But I honestly found him to be quite reasonable in those situations where he would bring stuff up, but it's not like he was shouting at people. He was just bringing it up and having a very calm conversation about it. I don't recall when I was coaching any time that he blew up and was shouting or anything like that, or even really heated. I don't even remember him even being really heated. It was more like he wanted to talk about things that went wrong and other people didn't.
Which is the vibe I get from
is that mild.
Yeah, I get the vibe that these are the people where they don't just sit back and say nothing. If they think is fundamentally wrong or irritating, they're going to voice it. They're going to make sure people know, and they're going to force it. By the way, they're also like this, going to force a decision. They're going to say, hey, we've got to do something about this.
Yeah. So I don't know.
But the quotes, if true, some of the quotes are hilarious. I'll give them that. That's some funny shit. Shut up! You don't know anything about the game. I love it. It's straight fire. It's straight fire. I love it. I want the whole script though. I want the actual Aaron Sorkin style dialogue, like the full back and forth money. Shut up! You don't know anything about the game. Your arrogance has come too far, Perkz. This won't be tolerated anymore. Oh yeah, I'm going above your head. Me and Peter Dunn are going to get you kicked. I will watch you and I'll kick you. Whatever. You read the dialogue. It wasn't bad. Wasn't bad. I worked his quote in there.
Working on his one-man esports play again.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keep smiling. Okay.
Also, the irony that the coach GM who wigs out when you insult him and just fundamentally straight kicks you from the team after one argument is the guy whose slogan is "Keep smiling." It's too much fun. I can't. It's the only way that would be better is if right after Perkz insulted him and really hurt his feelings, Perkz just went #keep smiling right to him. I would tilt him off the face of the earth, wouldn't it? I know.
I mean, he tweeted that, didn't he?
Remember Aaron, keep smiling. I'd just be like the prick doing that all the time. I'd be all over that 24/7. He did tweet it as a hint that that's what was going on. Yeah, Monty. That was like Perkz' way of letting them. He just did keep smiling, didn't he? It was basically that should have said fuck Aaron here. Basically, I know. Like this is obvious, wasn't it? I know. At that point,
too funny.
It's also like a 10-year-old meme as well that no one else even knows. So it wasn't even that sort, was it, Perkz? At all. Like,
I mean, it let people in the industry know what was going on. We all knew what that meant. We all knew what that meant. We have another sponsor for you guys. That's going to be Factor. They're back. Thank you. You might be busy over the holiday season as well. You know, you're worried about, getting presents, shopping for people. Maybe you just want a break. So you want to cook a little bit less when you have some time off work or time off school if you're a student. Well, Factor can get you some extra time because every week they've got up to 35 different meals and 60 add-on options that you can put in your box, like keto cookies, juices, smoothies, protein shakes, these kind of things. And everything just gets delivered in one box that's chilled to your door. You just put it in the fridge. These are chef-crafted, never frozen meals. Heat them up in just a couple of minutes, and you will have a chef-prepared and dietitian-approved meal that's probably better and cheaper than what you'd be ordering via, delivery apps. Let's put it that way. But you can find guilt-free comfort foods like home-style chicken and gravy, loaded mashed potato pork chops. They've got vegan food. They've got globally inspired flavors like Peruvian shrimp and red pepper cauli grits. Very good stuff. Vegetarian, everything that you could want in all of these different cuisine options. I'm going to look forward to getting some. I'm going back to the States for the holidays, so I'll be looking forward to getting some then, just like I did when I was back there in May. You guys can head to factormeals.com/50, that's 50LFN, and use code 50LFN to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50LFN at factormeals.com/50LFN to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. So just go ahead and give it a try, guys. Give it a try for that.
I'll give you two angles on this. Two angles that Monty didn't mention. One is they do actually cycle the lists of foods as well. So it's not going to be the same meals every month. And you can go online and check which ones you like and how, like you say, when he mentions all those profiles of keto and protein, you can also go and switch between them. If you want to try one and then switch off it and go, you can do all that. They also have the cool thing where you can do the scheduling thing of right, I'm going to be a bit away for this month, so I'll have less of them delivered. I'm going to be back home, so I'm going to have more. And then lastly, I'd also throw this out there for gamers. If you're the person who doesn't do the HelloFresh side where you want to cook and all that, if you don't have time, if you really are the nerd just playing solo queue and watching videos and living your life and going to work, it's so quick. It's going to be it's going to be both very convenient, but actually, like Monty says, actually good quality though. So if you're a gamer like the joke is, think about 2 minutes, you could literally do it while the queue's popped. While you're in draft, waiting to go in the game and load in, you could just go and set that up 2 minutes, be back and have your food.
And it will be cheaper than ordering stuff via delivery on a whim. Guys, it'll be cheaper and most likely healthier.
Remember, in the modern day nowadays, those little extra fees they had have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, which I understand why. The person has to come and deliver it, and they have to give it from the fit. But you're not going to have any of that. You get one big box comes each time. And so the costs are way lower. Yeah, of course. Way lower. And it's just actually good food. We've had it before. Me and Monty, unironically, have used exactly these services in the past, and we've actually just paid for them ourselves.
I wish I had it in Korea for my lunches during the day. I wish I had it here. So, thanks to Factor. Appreciate you guys. We should also talk about, you'll have fun with this one, Thorin. It was announced today that SwordArt is going to Vikings Esports in Vietnam.
Fuck yeah, okay. That's a bit of a weird one. Why?
Well, SOFM is on the team. SOFM is on the team, so I think that probably had something to do with it. But I mean, where else was he going to go potentially?
I saw that done from, unironically, one of like the great players in that region. Like, if you don't know, guys, just like Maple, who's just retiring now, the three great players who were all from the Flash Wolves are Carcer, SwordArt, and Maple. Those were the great ones who were like unique in their role, and they like transcended the region. Why has SwordArt gone from being like one of the best ever to just like an insane check stealing like world tour on the way out the back door? Like, he's gone from probably being one of the most underplayed great players ever, Monty, to like mega overpaid when he's game's actual shit. Like, what even is this? It's crazy. He's just nicking all the checks on the way out. I love it. I love it. Get them all,
as well.
Get them all.
Might as well.
Get them all.
So yeah, Vikings Esports lost, all of their games at this Worlds in play-ins, and SOFM is a coach on this roster now. And he is joining up, going to Vietnam for his latest stint in his professional career. Maybe he's just trying to hit every region, Thorin, before he retires.
True. Oh, no, the joke is in 2 years, he'll be on Rogue. Him and Malrang will be the support jungle duo on Rogue. It's completely washed out of their minds all the years down the line. Perfect. I love it.
I mean, I admire that he wants to continue playing, perhaps.
Sure. No, I always say this, Monty. I have a rule. I came up with this rule on By the Numbers back in the day. If someone is a truly great player, I will never ask for them to retire. Because if they're truly great, first of all, they might have glimpses of greatness in them. They might still pull a game out every now and then. And then also, because they're a truly great player, I know what it's like when athletes and esports people retire, and they think it's fine to retire now because in this year they don't feel like playing. But 5 years down the line, they all regret it, bro. If they all think they could have played 1 or 2 extra years, it's like the sports star who can't, like, the joke is, people might think this was just a joke. It is a Hall of Fame acceptance speech. Michael Jordan made a joke, like, you might see me still playing at 50, because I think he was like 48 or something at the time. And everyone laughed. But what you could tell he meant by that one, Monty, was, if I was actually young, I would just come and play again. But I just can't. Those days have been and gone, sadly. So I'll never ask for people to retire if they're truly great. But I do think, obviously, look, he's not going to have many good years of play left, is he? He's somewhat washed at this point in time. With that said, he's obviously good enough to be on Vikings Esports, isn't he? Like, that's totally fine. That's all good. It's all good.
Incoming VCS champion, sort of. I just thought it was funny, just given his career arc, his time stealing millions of dollars from TSM, which is still hilarious in North America.
It's just the fact that, think about this, Monty. We tried all those years through legit means to destroy TSM. And in the end, all it took was what? Lena, fucking FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, fucking Peter Zhang, who used to be the bomb-ass coach of Liquid, and then SwordArt, a giga-washed support player from LMS. Like, what we needed, Monty, the joke there is, that's like Lex Luthor or someone can't beat Superman, but then, like, the fucking Suicide Squad beats him. Like, what? Like, those are 2 different universes. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't even make sense, does it? Like, what? Like, but they're bombs, so why do they take him down? There you go. That's like some David with his slingshot taking down Goliath, bro. Little SwordArt taking down the Goliath of TSM.
Yeah, we also talked about all of the LPL rosters last week and kind of went down them, and those have all basically come out, including, as I told you guys, CV Max being the head coach for JDG. But there was something that I didn't necessarily anticipate, which is that is now the head coach of Top Esports.
Ooh, that is interesting.
So he
has an insane track record. So you got to give it to him.
Sure, he's one of, if not the greatest.
If people don't know,
LPL coaches
him and Tabe are just the ones in the LPL that every team they join just becomes like insane. Basically, yes. Those two just everywhere they go, success just follows them, doesn't it?
So I thought that was a really interesting, especially because this roster is potentially like pretty strange in terms of potential choking, I would say, because it's 369, Kanavi, Cream, Jackie Love, and Crisp. So I would say the variance with this roster is pretty damn high.
Smart, isn't it?
And they will need some kind of, heavy-handed coach.
Like the joke is they're going to put the fucking int in international play, aren't they? Like that lineup is ridiculous, bro. You've got all the fucking. But what's sad is on paper they're all really good, but they're also all an insane choking hazard, simultaneously wrapped into one team, and then given a coach who, sadly, I have to just glaze for being really great, even though I really so badly want to say what I don't like about this guy, but I can't say it 10 years later.
We'll never say it.
No, we can't. We never can say it.
Unfortunately, we're not the ones with the evidence, tragically. And this is one of those things that requires the evidence.
I've let that one go. Even though part of me is still mad about that fucking season 3 spring finals. I've let it go, buddy. I'm zen. I've let it go.
I just think it's funny that
it can't hurt me anymore. This spring 2013 final can't hurt me anymore, buddy. It's 11 years ago now. I have to let it go. Just let it go. Let it go.
He went from insane, disgusting Zach Merchant to the coach of Samsung White in their Worlds winning year. So he won Worlds before going to Vici, right? And then he was on WE, and finally he was on JDG for a number of years, including the year that they almost golden roaded, obviously, in 2023. But it's interesting because he took all of 2024 off, basically, and said that, I think he was having a kid or something like that, and said he might retire. And now all of a sudden they must have pulled out the wallet on Top Esports. But it does give me some level of hope for this Top Esports lineup because like I said, the variance is pretty insane on this roster right now.
It's a very skilled lineup, though. The highs
can be very high.
If you could make it all work without all these combustible elements exploding in your face, it could be insane. Yeah,
it could be great.
If you're a coach, it's one of those teams that's a great gamble. You'll get a lot of credit if it works out that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they had to have somebody who is really stable and experienced, and he's that guy. So I'm intrigued to see now this new iteration of Top Esports and if he can iron out some of the wrinkles that Top had this past year in playoff choking, which might only get worse with some of the players they've added.
Remember, obviously, he has the top and jungle from JDG. He has his boys 369 and Kanavi back. So it'll be interesting to see him work with them. They were their best when they were under him, arguably.
Yeah, I agree. Apparently, Goong is also a coach on this team, which I did not know.
It's a easy. Speaking of Nagney-esque fuckers that are still alive, fucking hell, that's how long ago that was. Season 4, Goon, shout out.
That's right. His Najin White Shield mid lane days and his famous Nidalee mid lane spears. It's been a while. He's been a coach for a long time. He was actually a coach on Gen G in 2020. So he has been bouncing around the coaching scene for quite some time.
By the way, that's actually one thing that's actually sort of a white pill, I've got to say, Monty. I was really worried because of StarCraft, seeing like the careers of some of those people. But I've told you this before. In the modern day, there are still StarCraft 2 players from Korea, Monty, that play. They're just like paid by orgs that you've never heard of from Europe, like, you know, €200 a month or something insane. Like, it's actually dark. Like, they're on like an org that you wouldn't even have heard of in Counter-Strike, you know. So you think to yourself, that's the downside and the dark side of Korean esports, is some of them even give up school or their home life, dedicate themselves to a game, but it's not hockey. You can't play till you're 40. You play till you're about like 26 or 27. Usually you go do the military. And then the problem is, unfortunately, within Korean society, you now have none of the markers that make you successful outside of esports. So what's worrying is, will they be trapped in esports, but with nothing to do? Will they just be like a low-level nobody? I actually think it's something of a white pill that if you look at LCK over the last few years, Monty, almost all the coaching staffs are all the great players. Yeah. Nearly all the great players get a gig, it seems like. Even the ones people laugh at, like nearly all of them are on a coaching stuff because they go 3 or 4 deep now. It's actually quite cool that like so many of the basically it was the people you casted in your era are all the coaches now. Yeah. They all got gigs. I like it. I'm glad there's something for them to still do and be involved and be part of the scene and pass on the knowledge and that. I think it's cool.
You know, it also, I think that the LCK in particular has had a good bifurcation of labor, which is that these aren't necessarily the people who are the head coaches, or they have managers who are more about managing the players. So it's more like these are the strategic guys, but they still have experience, obviously, from being pro players themselves and dealing with their teammates. So I think that there's a good opportunity for them not to necessarily have the burden of resolving a bunch of player drama, if that makes sense, that there are other people there and they can actually just focus on the game, where I'm not sure that really existed in the early days of League because the players hadn't retired yet. And so even people like Reach, who are famous Brood War people like Anajin, who was the head coach over there for many years, obviously was not going to be super game knowledgeable about League of Legends, but did have the kind of cachet and reputation, and we would hope the emotional intelligence to deal with these scenarios. So, and like, there's also been more of a coaching pipeline where in order to get coaching skills, a lot of these players have been on like academy rosters or whatever first. They're not immediately placed in the first team, and then they're placed into assistant coaching roles or strategic coaching roles. And then some of them actually end up in these head coaching roles, but it takes them, many years. But at this point in time, a player like his coaching career far outstrips his very, very short playing career, even though he was a champion in Korea in one of the greatest upsets in Korean esports history, I would argue. He basically...
It's like we say, he genuinely does deserve consideration as he could be the GOAT coach. Like, if you just look at what he's accomplished, he's a very good resume, certainly, yeah.
But by 2014, he had already switched over pretty much to coaching, and he's been in that position ever since and has had great success in China. So there you go.
LPL looks straight fire, though. I actually think LPL looks amazing. It's one of the... Normally, I'm very critical of LPL off seasons because they'll do that thing that I hate where you like sign an insane player but then put him with like 2 shit players you never heard of. Bro, there are some really good... I think the GMing at the top level in the LPL has been pretty good this off season. There's some really good teams with it. The parity looks like it could be amazing. You could go like a solid again, like 5-6 teams deep. It's really good.
Yeah. And I suppose the other interesting piece of news is that Sheer, formerly of JDG, has now joined FPX, which is...
By the way, that gives... All you need to know there is Monty. So what's weird, it's almost like he's joined what sounds like a great org, but they're in a rebuilding process and probably won't go into international tournaments. How does that work? Because it's like the only org that took him, guys, is one that knows they're not going to fucking Worlds, don't they? They know they got to go to MSI at Worlds, so it's cool to have this guy because he's just going to be sat in China playing, going... Like, you know, Monty, I looked into this. I had a little Google, and part of the problem is this, Monty. Apparently, this guy did the classic move. You know the famous saying that the problem with lying is you have to have a really good memory because you have to keep track of what you lied about or you'll catch yourself out. Supposedly, he said something like, in 2017, I was in this year of school. And then people were like, wait a minute, like the numbers, Mason, the numbers, like, that doesn't make sense. He'd only beat, and that's giving him away completely, apparently. That whole thing's like,
I know, it's
funny. So, classic banter. Love it.
Yeah, he said like what year of grade school he was in when Faker like won Worlds or something like that. And people reverse engineered it to show that he was young.
He did it. Think about it. Of all the things you could later go, sorry, I misspoke. You wouldn't say the wrong fucking year, would you? You know what I mean? Like, it's you were only there 5 minutes ago. Like, that was in. Oh shit, did I say 2070? Like, come on, bro, you hinted it. You hinted it there, bro. You hinted it. You blew it.
And for those of you thinking, oh, wow, well, FPX was a big surprise. What about that spring split they had? Wow, Milky Way was so good. He was having one of the most insane rookie splits of all time. And wow, Life was really good on those aggressive supports. His Rumble and Ashe supports were all over the map. Well, Milky Way and Life are no longer on this roster, so they are safely, let me tell you, in roster hell right now. Sheer is probably going to be the best player on this roster. It's interesting that Milky Way doesn't have a team yet, because as much as this guy suffered in summer, we know that there was all the outside drama with the top lane situation and the coaching staff. Certainly Milky Way fell off a bit, but there had to be some level of effect of the behind the scenes stuff on the team with that particular roster. So given what we saw in spring, you should believe that this guy can still be an immensely talented player now.
You'd think someone would want to gamble. Like, I'll tell you what, mate.
Oh, for sure.
Here's an obvious angle I was even thinking of. This is exactly the sort of player I would want to pair with, like a scout, so sort of like a macro mid lane. I think it could be amazing. Imagine these two players fucking playing on the map. It'd be baller. Whereas instead, sadly, this looks like he's just consigned to fucking RNG hell, doesn't it? Like, this match is not going to be good.
Well, also, if you think about JDG getting Jun, you might think, well, maybe they get Milky Way as a backup jungler and like actually just try and swap him out a little bit and see what could happen. That does sound like an interesting, experiment. But we also know that he was on loan from RNG, and given his promise that perhaps RNG will be wanting him back in the end. It is going to be, I think that's one of the big question marks about LPL in the offseason that I still have, is where this guy is going, because he could still definitely have a very good career. And RNG, I don't think has a jungler right now, so maybe that just explains itself in the end, and they haven't announced him yet. But it's a little bit weird that there hasn't been any kind of announcement about Milky Way up until this point in time. So that was the other little interesting tidbit that came up this past week, as most of the rosters are just going to be pretty much finalized by this point in time. Any juicy details from your Caps interviews, your reflections with Caps that came out that you want to tease?
Let me think. All right, there's one where I'm going to, the main story of this will actually be in the Reckless video, but like I picked this one because it's one that actually Caps could answer, and it's not that salacious. Like he didn't even address Reckless within it. But basically, I sort of give you a hint at what's going to be a straight fire story in the future Reckless video. Where are you ready for one of the examples of something hilarious about Reckless's career, Monty? Which is because it turns out behind the scenes, you'll find out more details. Reckless actually, it's not a joke. You know, the idea that he like had limited champion pool and he had issues. There's certain champions he just didn't want to play, basically, and sometimes refused to because either he hadn't played it enough in normals, or like he just didn't think it was good, or he didn't like it, or whatever. And what people don't think about is this: well, if you're his teammate, you're aware of that. So basically, because Caps played with Reckless, when Caps went to G2, you know that story, Monty, where in 2020, they did the role swap and Caps went AD. And then famously, that was the split where Mad Lions beat G2 in the upper bracket. And in the lower bracket, they went to the final and they played Fnatic there. And if you remember, Caps had a dream like Moses. And in the dream, he saw the vision that if you played Kog'Maw Lulu, you could beat Fnatic's bot lane. And they did it and they won the final. Do you remember that? Do you know the real story, Monty? Although Caps doesn't say this, he has to say it separately. The real story is Caps and Perkz know so much about Reckless because Caps played with him that they knew that Reckless would never play certain champions. So they knew if they banned out and made it so it had to be Aphelios, he would have to pick Aphelios with Braum or Thresh, and that's all he would do. And so they could just play Kog'Maw Lulu into it. It wasn't like the dream part was like that was like the movie selling of what happened, and the real thing. Caps himself says it separately. You know, he just understood the meta at the time. But like, there's one angle. Like that's just a little bit of spice. Then there's a couple of other ones. Like one that's a hilarious one is I ask about the fact that like there's a story that Carlos even revealed in my reflections with him. When Caps joined G2, Caps's dad was actually so fucking cool. He actually had the forethought to realize, Monty, but wait, you're joining the rival team, which is basically Perkz' team, and he's going to give up his spot for you. But what happens if he changes his mind? What if he comes, like he potentially did, and goes, hey, actually, it was cool, but I want to play mid lane again. If you're Caps, you're in a lot of trouble then. What if they pick him? It's his team, right? And apparently G2 promised Perkz' dad, like Caps' dad, like that'll never happen. Like if you join, we promise that it'll be your spot and you can have that, right? But here's what then Caps revealed that's hilarious. He says, actually, my parents were like really worried about me joining G2 because obviously they're not like esports people, because I was in Fnatic, so they like hated G2 because they were Fnatic fans. And then also, this is mad, they thought that the G2 Samurai logo looked scary and evil or something. They thought it looked too scary. I know. No, but the idea, like, oh, don't join that evil samurai clan. Like, why are they making it like some shonen Naruto shit or something? I know, it's ridiculous. So there's that part. There's like a bunch of fun stuff. Movie. Yeah. There's a bunch of fun little stories he has. He has some good ones. There's some good ones in there.
That's good. So you guys should check that out on Thorin's channels. You've released, as of this, you released 2 of the 3 parts.
The third one will come out today, so it'll all be done by today. By the time you watch this VOD, you'll be able to watch it basically, yeah.
So there you go. And we do have one final sponsor for you today, guys. Got a lot coming up for the holidays. Don't you know it? It's MeUndies. They're back once again. And by the way, another great holiday gift, because you might think via the name MeUndies that they have underwear. But guess what? Here's an excellent holiday gift for your parents. How about you get your dad some nice micromodal pajamas? It's a natural fiber made out of beech trees, and super soft, and that'll be a delightful gift. So they have a lot of loungewear and other options that you might not have considered. So these are also something else that can make great gifts for your family in this holiday season. They have lounge pants, hoodies, sweats, onesies. And like I said, those pajamas. Pajamas always a great Christmas gift while you guys are sitting around the tree and kind of just chilling at home. So that's a great thing to wrap up for your dad, significant other, whoever it is. And they also have cuts for everyone, 20 different styles of underwear and hundreds of different colors and prints, including holiday collection if you're feeling particularly festive this year. Lots of stuff over there. And you guys can knock out all of your holiday gifting needs today with MeUndies. To get exclusive holiday deals and savings all month long, go to MeUndies.com/summoning, enter promo code summoning. That's MeUndies.com/summoning, code summoning. MeUndies, comfort from the outside in. Great choice for you. So thank you very much to MeUndies. I want to do a check-in with you, Thorin, for the major. I know it's the CS major that's going on right now. League of Legends people might not be too interested, but it is happening in China, which is of interest because it's very rare that there have been major esports Counter-Strike events in China. So how's it rolling so far?
You know what? That's actually also one thing that's quite weird, because one of the weirdest things about esports is it's almost like civilizations, where once a civilization falls, people in the next civilization think it must have just been myth and there never was an Atlantis and it was all just a fantasized tale. Because what's really weird is, you're right, in CSGO, we almost never went to Asia. Like, you'd have there was sometimes like an RMR type event or a small event. Obviously, you went to Australia sometimes because it was an Anglosphere country. But actually, we never had giant events like majors would never be in China. But if people don't know, in CS 1.6 in the 2000s, there was tons of events in China and Korea, because actually back then the meta, if you remember, was you didn't have your own venue. You went to a trade show. So you'd go to like China Joy or World Cyber Games was obviously Samsung. So they used to hold the events in Korea or China. So it actually used to be standard to travel to Asia and have events there and have them at weird times. But it actually is very unusual for CS2 that we're doing this. This is why actually people do wonder, like, is this like Perfect World's push? Because they're obviously the distributor of CS in China. Are they trying to like build the game up there? Maybe they've seen the success of Valorant. The actual major itself, I will say, has been pretty good so far. Like, spoiler, I told you all this for League. I do hate fucking the shitter semi-unseeded Swiss, which does always produce some bullshit. Like, for example, at this major, Team Liquid has made top 8, but they did it like FlyQuest style. They didn't beat anyone good. They just beat like a bunch of random teams who were shitters and lost to the Na'Vi who wasn't even good themselves. So they've made like an easy one, but you have had some exciting ones. Like, for example, the Mongols from China, Mongolia, unironically, like 3-0'd and like beat a bunch of good teams. So like they've
3-0 both of the Swiss stages that are like the number 1 seed, aren't they? That's pretty wild. That a team of 5 Mongolian players is heading into the bracket stage like that.
Right now, you would still unfortunately expect them to lose, because their problem is they don't have much experience on like big playoff games and like being the favorite, etc. They're used to being the underdog and playing up that aspect that you don't have the pressure, you know. So I don't think they'll win it. But if you also look, aside from Na'Vi, who's been the team of the year, all the other top teams made the playoffs. So we're in the last 8 now, and it actually looks like it could be amazing. Like, you could go a lot of different angles as to who's going to win this major. There's like 2, 3, 4 teams could win. It's pretty cool.
Who's your favorite? I'm curious.
I think Vitality would have won personally. That would be the one that I would pick. Because the thing is, of the teams that are left, Na'Vi was the one that had the consistency over the year. Like, they would always make the finals. They were really hard to beat. But all the rest of the teams have like strengths and weaknesses. And so for me, the thing with the Vitality team is they definitely can have times where they're like individuals and the team aspect doesn't come together. But if they play like a 10 out of 10 level, I think they win. I think that's what people saw at IM Cologne when they won that one. If they play at their peak level, also Zeus was really good. For me, he's like the 3rd best player in the world. So I think if they come together, I think they can do it with the teams that are left. I also think as well, like, the other one you'd probably take is G2 after that. They do look really good. Do you want to know the real irony of ironies, by the way? This is the one downside. Because this is the last event of the season, this major, it's implied that G2 and Vitality, even if they win the major, are going to change their rosters. So that's just life. That's just life. So it's all good. So that could be silly, but it's all good. Let's just hope it's a great tournament. Let's all pretend this is sports.
Any particular reason?
I mean, in the case of like G2, Nico wants to go to Falcons or whatever, and he didn't.
Right.
I guess he didn't like the directing in this. Vitality, it's some weird thing where apparently Spinks wants to force his way out or something, and there's going to be, who knows what's going on with that? Who the fuck knows? I mean, the Vitality one's implied they didn't win many tournaments. They only won Cologne. So it's implied with theirs. Their team thinks they underperformed. They probably did, but they were doing like every semi-final, it felt like, but they didn't win many trophies. So I think that team is just frustrated with the fact they didn't win the trophies. By the way, not an unreasonable demand. I just think, obviously, if you win the major, I think that might be enough to run it back personally, but some people disagree. Whatever. It's all good. The real sad thing is this, and I've actually told pro players this when situations like this happen, is players are incapable of thinking outside of their current moment, and they always do grass is greener thinking, Monty. So even if they won now, their logic would be like, but I could be in an even better team. It's like, you could also be in a worse team. Are you aware of the latter part? Like, now you could be in a team next year that's even worse, and now you don't even make the semi-finals. That's the part you haven't thought about, pal. You know what I mean? So all I'll say is this: if Spinks really wants his way out of Vitality, you want to leave playing with Zewu. Bro, who do you expect you're going to go and play with? Like, I'd like to know, like, do you have someone else lined up? Is there someone else as good? Because that's going to be a pretty hard sledding from there on out. He's pretty good, mate. He is sort of one of the best players of all time. So it's one of those things, you know.
Do the Falcons qualify through Europe or through Asia for the major?
No, they're from Europe. The majority remember, it's just based on the players in CS, that's not the org. Yeah,
that's true.
So there was all European lineup.
I do like how players turned down Falcons initially, and now everybody seems to have gotten over their qualms.
By the way, here's the other thing: it's actually implied as well, Monty, because they've already benched like their IGL, etc. It's actually implied it's not just fucking Nico. It's implied it might be Nico and Monacy and other people. It might even be like one of the best players from Mouse or that. So they actually might make for real like a mega super team. It's why I told you in the past episode. Actually, I don't like the Saudi angle, but I would absolutely be in favor of Falcons money coming to LEC and making super teams. Sure. It's what I want. I want someone to come in and make a team with like Larson and Upset and Jankos and fucking, you know what I mean? Like I want those teams.
That's the only way it'll be competitive again on the global scale, right?
Absolutely.
I think, you know, and if you guys are denying that, I mean, G2 is effectively a super team, and they were top 4 in the world at MSI this year, and that was, I think, pretty incontrovertibly proven by their performance at that tournament that they were a top 4 team in the world. And again, Worlds has been rough for them the last couple of years, but the core was there. It does. Does that exist now with Skewmond? Maybe not.
Notice everyone takes the opposite interpretation of the year of G2 you just did there. So they go, in the tournament that was double a limb, best of 5 series, giant sample size, and just the best teams. They were like the 4th team, and in fact, it looked like they could have been 3rd and beaten T1. But then in the tournament, that's Worlds with a mad Swiss system where you get randomized draws and you play BO1s. They weren't that good, so I guess you know what that means. Actually, the really small sample size one, the randomized draws, that's the one that defines them. They weren't a good team, Monty. That's the opposite of analysis, guys. Like, what?
Also, I mean, just from the eye test alone at MSI, not only did they beat one of the LPL teams, but I mean, I can just tell you that the rest of the LCK teams were not very impressive this year, especially at the time of MSI, right? At the time of MSI, many of the LCK teams were not super, like Hanwha wasn't that good at that time. So it was pretty definitively like Genji and T1 coming off of Spring Split that were the best teams. And I think G2 was, in fact, a better team than the other LCK teams at that time. And obviously there was a huge fall off after Hanwha because we were talking about D+ and KT, right? And I mean, if you don't think G2 is better than those teams, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I just want to do a little check-in on the major because that is going to be coming up this weekend, guys. If you want to watch it, we've gone through the 1,000,000 rounds of Swiss because if you guys don't know, the major has 24 teams now. In addition to the qualifiers, and by the way, thank God these qualifiers are going away, but they're going away to make 32 teams at the majors, which means in the next year there's going to be 3 Swiss phases, right, Thorin? Which is really insane.
Like that, I hate Swiss in general, but I think it just sucks.
Well, it's just so crazy.
The problem, I actually think Swiss, unfortunately, will last a long time in League and CS, and here's why, Monty. Because think about the ultimate impulse that ruins all formats is fans wanting the thrill of a novel thing that's not supposed to happen, an upset, a matchup, a run that happens. Well, the problem is Swiss gives you that insane thrill every time they do the draw. Now, part of the thrill is one of them's going to be really unfair and one of them's going to be really spicy. But unfortunately, so what to me is a negative, I think is a feature, not a bug to some people. So unfortunately, right. I think normal fans like it. I think they like no one knows who it could be. It could be anyone. You could get an easy runner. But what's mad is some people even like the idea you can get a bullshit run. Like, I want a legit run. Like when I just talked about that Mongols thing, they have a legit run to the playoffs, mate. The team look at one's Fugazi. Why would I want to get a bullshit run where I get the fucking NRG treatment where everyone's like, you're not a real team? Like that sucks.
I just think
Swiss. Fuck Swiss.
I just think the thing about the major is that there's so much Swiss because it's 16 guys. It's 16 teams of Swiss, and then they get the top 8 teams, and then those 8 teams go on to another 16-team Swiss round with 8 teams that are higher seeds that qualified earlier. So what you get is 2 16-team Swiss phases, which is just way too much before you actually get into any kind of bracket play. And now you're going to get 3 of these Swiss phases next year because the rumors are that Valve is switching to the 32-team major. But anyway, many of you will have missed the very annoying 2 Swiss rounds and can get involved right now at the playoff stage, which is just an 8-team single elimination bracket. Should it be double elim? Obviously. Is it single elim? Yes, it is, because Valve sets the formats for the major. Does Valve set the formats for anything else the entire year? No. Do they? Why do they get
this? Also would be amazing if this was double elim. This bracket would be so fucking sick, bro. As well, like I said, unironically, you've got like something like 5 out of the top 6 teams of the year. Like it's mega. It would be awesome in a full double elim, but instead it's not. And by the way, the top half of the bracket for this playoff is the weak half. Like essentially, the 2 favorites I just told you, G2 and Vitality, are on the same side. So you've even got one of those ones where single elim's getting a little bit rough. Like whoever comes second might not actually be the second best team. If it's Spirit or Mouse, they might not actually beat second best. So I love double elim as well. Of course, I don't get that in either fucking game. That's why unironically, I've told you, people might think I'm trolling. The second they made that MSI change last year, that became my favorite league tournament easily. Sure, obviously. Stop. I think MSI is a baller tournament. I love that format. So many best of 5s, all the double elim aspect. Like at the end of it, have you noticed, Monty? There's nothing unsatisfying at the end of an MSI. No. You never look back like, oh, I never got to know if they were good or are they actually good. But what about it? You feel like all our questions are answered, don't you? It's awesome.
It was great.
Stop.
Like you actually just have definitively the top 4 teams in the world, top 5 teams in the world, maybe. You're feeling really good about any kind of rankings on that patch at that moment in time. There are very few questions, I think. So yeah. Shall we take a little break and do some viewer questions?
Yeah.
All right. See you guys in a couple.
Right, this is going to be the last segment. But first, I did realise earlier when Monty asked me about that Caps interview, I did just get lost in that story about Reckless just like draft gapping himself because they knew who he was as a player. So what I forgot to tell you is this. What I will say makes this interview interesting, I think, is I'm fully aware, one, that Caps doesn't do a lot of long-form content. And everyone thinks they know his story because he's talked about a lot of the same things before, like the time he flamed Faker on solo queue before he was famous, or things like we got to go Vane Dylan, or people know all those ones. So I thought when you get somewhere where people think they know everything about them, my favorite approach, Monty, is to intentionally ask about those topics, but from like a different angle or a different fucking lens applied to it. So when I ask him about like the era when he went to Turkish League, for example, it's not about actually playing in Turkish League. It's more things like, weren't your parents worried that you were like going away to Turkey on your own as like a 17-year-old? So it's more things like that. Or like, for example, I don't ask him like, wow, must suck to lose World's Finals. It's more like, when that happens, don't you ever wonder, like a lot of people would say, you're delusional saying you can win Worlds now. Like your window came and went and those were your chances. Why do you still think you can win? It's more like, I think I'll just say, there's not a ton of content out there, but I think Caps is actually, he's not a hard interview, but he's not the easiest. And I think I did a pretty good job sort of getting him to address a different perspective on his career than maybe you've ever heard before. So there you go. Anyway, speaking of asking great questions and getting great answers that you might not have expected, now is the viewer questions segment where people who support us by subscribing to our Glass 3 Nation Discord can submit questions. And sometimes they're good, sometimes they're trash. Same with the answers.
What's strange about Faker winning these Player of the Year awards is that he is the limiting factor on T1. This last T1 roster won every BO5 where Faker did not get gapped. Also, when's the last time Faker was the best player on T1 over the course of a whole tournament/split? 2018 spring? Yeah, exactly. We talked about that earlier. Good points, though.
Well, it is true. Yeah, it's a good point.
Architect of Korean esports base Joe Marsh. Is the American dream dead? Well, the first question is, was it ever really alive? And then the second answer is yes. For now, at least.
It depends. It depends. What do you define as isn't the American dream, Monty, the notion that like you can move to this new land and within it you could build your own fortune as a nobody? Sure, now, remember, implicit within that, I feel like what people miss, Monty, is you have to ask this question in the same way as the mistake when people talk about things like communism or fascism is they don't ask this question, Monty. What are they an ideological response to, though? What are they building on? What are they replying to as a retort? So what you have to ask is this: what is the American dream contrasted against? It's contrasted against a notion of Europe as some sort of like feudal system in which, you know, like lords and fucking royalty rule over you and you're always stuck in your caste place and there's no mobility within society. Like the notion is the only way, if you don't know, guys, like the 18th or 19th century, you could move up was to just be like a mercantilism crony and be like within a business that's partially sort of almost state owned, a bit like China now, and then you sort of like move up gradually. But even then, if you became the nouveau riche, you never really get to be like the actual aristocracy. You know that. They always look down on you and think, well, you have the money. You might be able to look like yours, but you're not our noble blood. You know, our things, you don't have the right to rule. The notion of America was the idea that instead it was going to just be this open free market playground where if you were just some guy who could just hustle and sell whatever, the joke would be like peanuts or fucking farm alpaca pelts, then you could just make your own business and be super rich. I'd say to some degree, some of that still exists. There is some aspects like that where you can still have this crazy mobility. It's just, obviously the dream aspect, it didn't really work out for everyone, did it? Put that way.
Well, it's also I think that the wealth gap right now is so huge that it kind of has stultified into what it was supposed to be against, right? So I think this is probably the greatest wealth inequality since the Gilded Age in the late 19th century.
Yeah.
And that's not to say it can't be fixed or it won't be fixed, because obviously the Gilded Age was eventually fixed. People got fed up with it and like dealt with it. Will it happen again? Possibly. But right now, I think it is harder than it has been in a long time, in like 100 years, to move up in terms of American society. Is Caps a top 10 mid laner of all time for you? I would have, in no particular order, Scout, Rookie, Faker, Chovy, Xiaohu, BDD, Rookie, Knight, Doinby, and Showmaker as 10 who I think would possibly edge him out. He's on the cusp for sure. I mean, that's a good list of 10 players.
I'm just thinking of my own list. Let me think. Because here's the problem. I run that list down again. Let me just go down who it was.
Scout, Rookie, Faker, Chovy, Xiaohu, BDD, Rookie, Knight, Doinby, Showmaker.
Wait, so it's Faker, Rookie, Scout, Chovy, Xiaohu, BDD, Knight. What was the other one?
Rookie, Doinby.
Rookie,
Doinby, and Showmaker.
And Showmaker. And he has him as the 10th. I don't hate that list.
No. Those are 10 players that he listed that he thinks might be better. So we're thinking about, does he actually crack that list? And he suggests 10 players that might be better.
Do you know what? This might hurt people's feelings, but I don't think it's implausible Caps was better than Showmaker. People might not like that. I know he's a world winner.
Or Doinby?
Or Doinby, especially in the years when Doinby wasn't like cracked individually. Like the early years, I think Caps was better than it, wasn't he?
Here's a hot take for you, Thorin. When Doinby won Worlds, he was worse than Caps losing Worlds.
I think that's fair. Yeah, that's a fair take.
And Showmaker certainly had high highs, but...
By the way, there's another thing that you can refer to in my Caps interview. When I asked Caps what's it like to play a prime Doinby, essentially his answer, Monty, could be boiled down to, well, I wasn't really just playing a mid laner. I was playing the guy who understood, first of all, to bring jungle and support with the mid, whereas no one else did that. Like, essentially, that was the success of Perkz, wasn't it? It was the team success, not the fucking player. So that's not even as hot a take as people probably believe. That sounds mega spicy because Doinby's a world champion. And by the way, I don't hate it. Like, once you actually notice, by the way, what he actually did there is something I'm very glad the guy did. He did his run. People do this thing, Monty. It's so bad from fans. When they say top 5, they don't mean there's 5 people and he's in it. Top 5 is some nebulous thing that just means really good. And so when you do like a top 10 list, they'll just list 20 names. At least this guy did the actual exercise. He listed 10. And by the way, like I'm saying, I could maybe nudge Showmaker out and beat Caps. So maybe he is the 10th best mid laner. It's actually not. It sounds wild because he's from the West. But actually, if you think of his long career and how excellent he was and the international successes he had in the runs, I don't think that's that bad a take. I think that's very plausible. Yeah. He can be top 10.
I think he's probably on the cusp. This guy also accidentally put rookie twice. I just noticed. So
yeah, that's why I kept asking, because that's why I said I knew rookie was early, but it's all right. It could be like 9th or 10th, whatever. Because I'm trying to think who else actually is missing.
But I think Showmaker really hasn't been good the last 3 years.
No, I don't think so. And for me, I'm sorry.
Peaks,
listen, I don't want to diss him, but for me, of the two, when it was Showmaker Canyon, I always thought Canyon was the better of the two players, personally. That's just my take.
It's also that Showmaker admitted to being burned out at times in the last few years and has not been playing at the level we would associate with him. I think you could also there's some other fringe names you could put in here. Dade, for instance, is one that probably
maybe he was excellent at one point in time. Yeah, of course.
You could maybe say Pawn as well. Frankly, like there was a big period where Faker was pretty much unequivocally the best Korean mid laner, and there wasn't really much other competition until later on in Faker's
by the way,
career.
If you think about it, Monty, anyone who thinks we're being harsh, like we're not actually even super glazing Caps, but what we're doing is we're not just saying like cause Nagnir was in like a good team, he gets to be above Caps. No, like Caps can be better than him. It's a whole bunch of Kuro, Flight, he's better than all these players. That's totally fair. Pawn, I think that's, by the way, Pawn won a lot of tournaments, guys. He's won like MSI, fucking LPL, LCK, like fucking, this guy won everything, like a lot. So yeah, we're actually giving like, I think we're being quite fair. We're trying to separate the player from the team.
Yeah. I think probably Caps is on the cusp. And what could you have asked Caps to do that he hasn't done?
We've also put him above Yagao. Yagao's won the LPL a bunch of times, but I do think Caps is better. I've got to say, I just think he's better. Sorry. Yeah.
I think also what people will say, well, Caps, he hasn't done that well. Well, he has to play in the region he's playing in, and he basically wins every split domestically, and then also has made very deep runs at MSI and Worlds.
Here's the stat everyone forgets, Monty, because this stat is unfucking believable. I'll give you two stats, Monty. Caps has been in something like, let's say, like at 12 finals domestically. He's only ever lost one. And then so that's his like aggregate level. And then I think the worst placing ever in the playoffs is he's come third before. In his entire LEC career, by the way. I think he's come third once.
That's great.
Or twice, it's no, mate, the floor on his game is impossible. Like, he does that thing, which, sadly, this is why, unfortunately, fans get their brain broken by individual players. Because there are certain individual players that are so cracked out. Like, in Counter-Strike, by the way, it was people like Simple and Zewu. They almost single-handedly could just get you to the playoffs. They might not win you the tournament, because, they're just human. But they can always just get you through a group stage, like, which doesn't seem possible, because they're just one player, but they're just that good. Caps is that guy. Like I say, a bad tournament is you come third. Bro, for even some of the greatest players of all time, like fucking Forgiven, third is like where they just like a good tournament run. That's like, hey, we had a pretty good split. Caps is like, yeah, bit of a bomb. I'm thinking of retiring. I just finished third this time. Fuck. Okay. You were saying that I was looking some of the other ones up, and all the other ones, I think Caps probably would be out. Like, here's another one we didn't mention, like Shie, but I tell you what, I'd give Caps at that. Yeah. She is an LPL champion. If people don't know, he's been deep in international touch, but he's not Caps. I think that's fine. That's a legit one. Caps can be a top 10 mid laner of all time, which, by the way, is a testament to his greatness. I don't think anyone else from the West gets to these lists, Maybe Jankos would, I guess, for jungle, but that's about it. I don't know that you get anyone else.
Yeah, probably. The lead up to this one is, you got to wait for this one.
T1 shit, come on, hit me with it.
The bland, forgettable studio, yet somehow great in the big stadium performance of Ed Sheeran. The annoying fan base backing up the artist, regardless of what said artist does, and the internet witch hunts of Taylor Swift.
Come on, hit me with it.
And last but not least, the factor of being a known quantity, putting nothing new on the table, but people still overblowing your talent out of proportions of new artists like Sabrina Carpenter. I present to you the king of pop in League of Legends, Faker.
As soon as I said Sabrina Carpenter, I was out already. But it's all good. We all know what he was doing there. We all know. Fair enough. It was funny. It was funny. I can't lie. It was funny.
I don't know this reference from our friend Butt Pounder 420. Do you know if the pieces fit? If so, did you watch them fall away, and were they mildewed?
It's from the Tool song Schism, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Isn't it the lyrics to Schism? Like,
I don't know. I'm not a Tool fan.
No, I think it's just referencing the lyrics. I think.
Okay. Do either of you have any advice on starting in martial arts?
Sure.
I started in martial arts at a certain point in time. I decided to, so first off, you need to be more specific. What kind of martial art are we talking about here? Because if you're trying to select one, you might there's going to be different answers to what you should select.
That's the thing, Monty. It depends where you are in your life. Because back in the 80s, I just moved with my immigrant mother to a new town, and I was having a hard time making friends. And then what's really annoying is I actually started to get this girl that was starting to like me. I thought, okay, I've got some friends. And you won't believe this. The local gang of like blonde-haired, rich youths, they went to a fucking karate studio, and they not only bullied me, but they were using karate to bully me. But what's insane is it turned out this old Japanese man from Okinawa, who I thought just owned a used car lot, actually like took me under his wing and mentored me. Oh shit, wait, that wasn't me. That was actually the Karate Kid. My bad.
That's the Karate
Kid. I mistook my whole life for what happened.
By the way, shout out to Cobra Kai.
I should have kept that going. I should have kept that going the whole way.
I don't think Thorin would be a fan of Cobra Kai, but Cobra Kai is fabulous.
Because here's the problem, Monty. In a weird way, because I've done it with so many other things, I haven't been and rewatched The Karate Kid, Monty, because I did hold it so dear to my heart when I was like 13. Monty, I'll just tell you some truth. I watched those films and then went in my bedroom and was doing the crane kick and thinking I could practice that shit. So I can't bring myself to watch that shit again in case it's total trash.
No,
Thorin. If it's really bad, if it's so bad.
Thorin. If you have a fond place in your heart for the Karate Kid movies, then you should watch Cobra Kai because it is exactly what you want it to be.
Okay,
the fact that they got all of the old actors to show up in this show is Ralph Macchio is fucking great in this show. So it is exactly. So I put out a tweet one time where I was like, Cobra Kai is like the best anime basically out there. And it is actually better at being an anime than anime is in terms of like the shonen manga. Is it deep? No. Is it a stupid high school anime drama where people punch each other? Yes. Is it great?
I might give it a go then.
It is, dude. It's fucking great. So it is just as over the top and cheesy and melodramatic as you want it to be, but it's handled with such care and craftsmanship that it's wonderful. Like I really love this show.
I don't know if the Gen Alpha can really appreciate. I don't know if it's the same vibe if it works for them. But Monty, if you actually were a kid in the 80s and you watched that film, the fucking like euphoria that you feel when he lands that crane kick at the end. It's like the fucking best line of cocaine ever. And it's unreal, isn't it? Like you just don't count at that point. It's unreal, mate.
So by the way, look, I don't even know how they convinced all the old actors to come back because they were literally doing nothing. But you would think, hey, these guys were like child actors. They probably suck at acting. They are so good. Like it's just so good. You just got to know what you're in for, which is that it is just a teenage like it is a teenage like anime show, and if you're in on that, it's works super well. But yeah, it's great. It really is good. And if you hold it, I am amazed at how much they like revere the source material of those original movies. It's the same tone. It's exactly the same shit. It's just done in the modern day, and Gen Alpha fucking loves it, by the way. Those kids, like the high school kids they got, have like millions of Instagram followers and shit now. They've become like giant, Gen Z celebrities, basically.
Anyway, before my digression, what would you be your advice for someone to get into martial arts?
Well, it just depends on what your goals are. Like if you're just saying, I want something ruthlessly practical, then you should do Krav Maga, which is the Israeli Defense Force martial art, which is basically the art of kicking somebody in the balls and running away. If you want something that's more strategic, like chess, and that, that's what you want BJJ for, where you're trying to like figure out all the wrestling forms. If you want a great workout, you should be doing kickboxing. So Muay Thai or K1 or some other form of kickboxing. That's going to give you by far like the best workout. You will lose a ton of weight and get in shape doing that. It's also practical, but not as practical as Krav Maga.
That's also probably the most underrated part, right, about the striking sports. People think of them as like, I do it to learn to beat people up. No, think about boxers. They're fucking skipping rope all the time. You're doing speed. That's really exhausting. That's cardio and half, mate. Yeah.
And also kickboxing is even worse than boxing because you're also trying to kick people in the head and throw high kicks in these drills. So it is probably the best form of cardio you can actually do.
It's a mega workout.
If you are in good shape and doing Muay Thai, you can burn like 800 calories an hour.
Also, think of this. If you go to the gym, you have to actually push yourself to work out. When someone's trying to kick you in the head, you are going to be very motivated to move out the way and to keep your energy level up in a way you won't be when that bar can just be put back. You know what I mean?
And also, it'll motivate you to get better so you don't get kicked in the head anymore. That's what I've found. I've done Muay Thai for like 10 years.
That's, you know what, you've actually also backdoored there into something about philosophy, Monty, which is I actually think martial arts are excellent for the kind of person who was drawn to early esports games. Because you know the famous reason why people don't like games like StarCraft 2 and Quake, Monty, is because since they're one-on-one, they're too intense for people, and people don't like getting wrecked. And
no. Oh, no. We lost him.
Annoying feeling that you're way worse, you turn that into a mechanism that goes, but imagine if I practice and I become the guy who's way better. That will be really addictive. Then I'll get to dominate him. That's what martial arts is like too. So when you go as the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu first time and you get absolutely wrecked and you're a white belt and you know no moves, tell you what, you know how powerless you feel. Imagine how powerful you will feel when you can be the guy who does the moves to people and they can't do shit against you and you have that is going to be mega addictive and really rewarding. So if you can have like delayed pleasure, as it were, you will love these fucking hobbies. They're some of the best of all time. It's the reason why people get obsessed and it becomes their whole life. It's like video games. Yeah.
But there's so many different martial arts out there. It also depends on what's available in your area. Like, you know, when I was in New York City, I was at a Muay Thai gym, but also there were Kali instructors, which is an Indonesian like knife fighting form that I took some classes in. There's some real crazy shit out there that you can get involved in. Advice from martial arts, like it'll get you in shape if you're doing the right one in the right classes. It's just a matter of picking the one that jives with you. And often they'll have free classes to start out wherever you go. So you might want to just try a few, honestly. But it just depends on what holds your interest. I want to do Muay Thai for the exercise, but also because I like kickboxing as a sport. I don't, when I watch UFC, it's not that I don't respect the wrestling. I just find the wrestling boring. I like people punching and kicking each other, and I like the knees and elbows and the form. I like watching Muay Thai as a sport, so that's why I was interested in it, as opposed to, I mean, I have no BJJ knowledge whatsoever. I'm like pure striking, so if you got me on the ground, I would be fucked. But there you go. I have been doing that for 10 years, so when I got in, it was just a matter of picking which one I wanted. Went back and watched Thorin's grilled interview with Monty and noticed Monty wearing a ring on each hand. Any recommendations for rings you like and why? I have very specific taste, so I don't like gold. So I only wear silver, or in the case of my wedding band, it's actually platinum, just because that's the kind of metal look that I like. So I wear a lot of Navajo jewelry at times. So I wear basically like silver and turquoise and onyx, and that's about it. You know, I have an earring on right now that's a Navajo turquoise stud. But that's the kind of rings I like. Southwestern jewelry.
Hey, if someone just tuned in out of nowhere, they just heard out of context, I have a Navajo turquoise stud. That's what they just heard Monty say.
Where is it?
Context. Yeah, exactly. Who is he? Or the obvious joke would be how. Whatever.
Would you guys potentially do a Hall of Fame episode for League in the off season? I made a 30 and 60 man list earlier this year, and it would be fun to see if you could put in who could you use. Yeah, might be able to do that. Did you guys ever visit Japan?
You do realize, Monty, on the one hand, this obviously, when that Caedrel thing happened, did make me think we should just do our own awards. But I also thought, we will also get absolutely no grace from the community, and they'll tell us to go fuck ourselves too. So that'll happen also. We will also be punished for the good deed. Don't worry about that. That will always happen.
I mean, we want to do an LFN, like more esports Hall of Fame is what we really want to do. Did you guys ever visit Japan? If so, what would you recommend to do? What is overrated, etc.? Yeah, I've been to Japan a few times. I'm going back in April. I was there last November. Have you been to Japan, Thorin?
No. And this, sadly, one of the few things I never did, because if you remember, I never had to do the thing you guys did to reset the 89 days or whatever, because I was always going to events, so that used to reset me automatically. So I've actually never done what a lot of people who've lived in Korea have done, like go to Vietnam for a day or China or fucking Thailand. So I've never done it, actually. So I've never done the thing where now, unfortunately, I don't want to do, Monty. That's why you've got to do things while you care about them. When I was young, I was mega into Japanese games and RPGs and stuff. I would have loved to be that loser otaku in Akihabara going, oh my God, look at that. You probably call that a SNES. I call it a Super Famicom. I would have been that wanker, but the problem is now, Monty, I feel like now I detest people like that, look down at them and don't want to be that person. So have you been to Akihabara? Have you been there, Monty?
I have.
Is it dope? Is it cool? Oh, it's terrible. Okay. Okay. It's over, is it? Okay.
So here's what I will say about Japan. I have not been everywhere in Japan. I actually don't like Tokyo as a city. And the reason why I don't really like Tokyo is that I like city.
Before Monty says the real reason, the joke is that's how you know he's truly Korean now. Just hates Japan and everything about it. So, no, I know, whatever. It's all good. Keep going.
Look, the food's great in Tokyo, but I prefer cities with more history, and not to say Tokyo doesn't have history, but it was entirely firebombed by America in World War II. Okay. So there's not a lot of this, most of the historical buildings are in Kyoto or Osaka.
That makes it even more obnoxious for you, an American, to come along later after your people destroyed the
sucks. Why did we firebomb this city?
The old one. It's like, yeah, no shit. We used to have it till you focus came. I love it. I love an American angle that is. It's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, I don't want to come here anymore. Thanks to my grandfather. Anyway,
exactly.
So, I will say some good things about Tokyo, like. Men's fashion in Tokyo is unlike anywhere else in the world. And if you like certain things like I do, such as denim, men's workwear, this kind of stuff, because the Japanese took all of the American looms.
Jeans over there. They're wearing fucking denim jeans. I didn't know that was a thing over there. Okay.
Oh, it's selvage denim, man. It's huge in Japan. So you'll love this. They basically, the Japanese came to America and they bought all of the like denim looms that were used in the 50s and 60s to make really good denim back in the day. And then they brought them over to Japan and they just keep using them to make good denim. And they make very good cotton textiles. And also the cool thing about Japan is that there's just the fashion nerds are just crazy. So every reproduction piece, you just go to stores in some of these districts in Tokyo, and I found like a replica 1930s like ski parka that was fucking incredible. And it's just shit like this you can only buy in Japan. So the quality of men's clothing is just much, much higher. And any niche you want of like weird fashion niche, hippie shit, punk shit, it's all just made better in Japan at this point in time. So that's great. I was in I was in Okinawa last year. Okinawa is awesome. Tons of stuff to do there. Beautiful islands. Very English, by far the most English friendly part of Japan. I've been outside of Nagano in the middle of nowhere. In the mountains during the winter.
They had the Winter Olympics way back, right?
Oh yeah, during the winter.
Years ago, they had the Winter Olympics.
Susie and I went to go see like the snow monkeys, the ones that sit in the hot springs, and you were walking through these snowy cedar forests to the hot springs. It was
I'm really scared that was some sort of racial epithet there, but
no.
Listen, in the modern day, you have to be kid close to this shit. I know exactly. I got really worried. What the hell does that refer to? Okay,
no, they're the snow monkeys that chill in the hot springs in the winter. Anyway, Japan in winter is really beautiful. I really want to go to Sapporo because it has, up in Hokkaido, which is the northern island, which is the where you can go skiing, because that's some of the best skiing in the world up there. So.
Isn't that where they make the sake and shit like that? Isn't that like the famous brand or something?
Yeah, I mean they make Sapporo the beer.
There we go.
Is, from Sapporo the city. But yeah, the skiing in Hokkaido is supposed to be amazing. But I like Japan a lot in general. I think with Japan, you want to get to the more historic parts or the more remote parts?
The problem is, I've nailed it. I'll tie it into the previous question. Your problem is you wanted it to be like Karate Kid 2, but it's in the modern Japan, so it's not like that. Okinawa. When you went there, Monty, no one even challenged you to a fight, and no one had those little drums where they spin it back and forwards there. and then you do the karate chop. Yeah. By the way, the sequel also way worse than the first one. Like the first Karate Kid banger. See, the sequels it's literally diminishing returns. That third one is a fucking travesty. You remember that one?
But they made Cobra Kai, so it's all worth it.
The one where the third one for real is like he has a falling out with Mr. Miyagi, and then like an evil guy trains him who secretly is like friends with his enemy and just makes him hurt himself. Like chop this wood. Like, oh, that hurts. Do it again. Like, oh, I'm hurting myself. Like, it's the first one's really good. It didn't need to be any sequels. Just the first one's good.
You say that, but we got Cobra Kai, so it was all worth it. It was all worth it in the end.
Okay.
Why? Anyway, my advice is go to the like Japan is stunningly beautiful in terms of natural beauty. So I would say like Tokyo is not super interesting as a city in my opinion, but go outside, go see the historic stuff, go see the landscapes. It is very, very beautiful. Go to Okinawa. Okinawa is rad. Why do you think Roger Ebert is one of the most famous film critics of all time, despite having terrible taste in most people's eyes? You know, if you have enough determination.
To be fair, the era that he came up in, though, Monty, was when, like, actually a lot of people, like, this is almost more of a modern phenomenon where people are like, I'm a film auteur. I mean, like, actually, a lot of people, like, back then, films were actually considered quite sort of like plebeian entertainment. You know, it's just something you go and see on the cinema when it's out. I don't think people were as serious about films back then. Like, one thing people might not know, Monty, is literally reviews, like on TV and in the paper, genuinely served the purpose of telling you whether you should go see the film or not. It wasn't just like, oh, I wonder what he thinks. It's more like you only have a limited amount of budget and there isn't a thing where you can watch like trailers on your fucking phone. You have to have a sense of like, in fact, if you remember, most reviews back in the day were like, and the director did this before and you might have seen him in this. Like, a lot of it was almost like an ad for the film almost, yeah.
It's also that this was back when the media was gated, and you know, Roger Ebert was very, very famously the film critic for the Chicago Sun-Times, which is one of the biggest newspapers in America. And so when he got famous, sure, the Roger Ebert or the SiskelandEbert.com or whatever came later, and he spun off his own brand. But once you had kind of one of those jobs of being a major critic at a newspaper, you never left. And so as long as you just kept doing this job for decades, you would gain a cachet. There wasn't anywhere anyone else could turn to. There wasn't a YouTube you could go watch someone else who you vibed with to see what they thought of a movie, right? It was like the opinions were just handed down from on high by the people in these jobs, and there wasn't a way for other people to really work their way up. Like if Roger Ebert had a shit opinion, but somebody else had a good opinion, somebody had to platform that person, right? And that didn't exist. So also, I mean, credit to him, sheer grit. If anything, Roger Ebert should inspire you all that if you just do something enough times, you can be famous doing it, whether you're good or bad. Look at streamers, guys. Look how some of the biggest streamers in the world were just the dudes who were always online streaming. Are we really going to say that the best, the most famous streamers in the world, these are somehow more gifted than other people? I don't know about that one. Previously, Thorin said hiking sucks, but also talked about the incredible sunrise in Vietnam. Monty, if you were tasked with converting Thorin to a rugged outdoorsman, what would your strategy be? Would it focus on scenery, fun activities like whitewater rafting and climbing? Definitely not that. Or something chill like fishing? Definitely not that. I feel like you had to. There has to be some level of payoff for you, like Dawn from the Summit or some like historical thing that you tie to it. Like this king was here at this time and saw this site. I feel like that's what you would get you into it. I don't think rafting or climbing is for you.
I'll tell you what I think's underrated. I don't know if this is just not as much of a thing in America, but in England, it's actually quite a famous thing that if you go somewhere where there's like a big, like famously in Scotland, there's a lot of like mountainous areas and massive hills, etc. Oftentimes when you do that, I'm not joking, they'll build like a pub halfway up or something, or a little inn, a tavern, and you just stop there halfway up and you have like a cool meal or something, and it's like you refresh yourself and go all the way up. So it can also sort of make it like a whole day out. It's not just the keep going, keep the pace up and that. You can actually have like a fucking chill time too, so you can something like that.
Korea's like that as well. Like halfway up the mountain, they just have a restaurant that you hike up to. It's very nice. It's very nice.
Yeah. So if I did that and there was some awesome food in that restaurant, maybe I'd go. Because he's giving it away there. Unfortunately, what he's fucked up is when he said, but he liked the sunset. Yeah, but the beauty of the sunset in Vietnam is you don't have to climb anything, mate. It's just there. You're just stood there. And it's just there coming over. Just a giant. And also, the reason it's so epic is because, remember, I'm only used to be in the west part of the world, Monty. It's so giant when it comes. It's so huge. It looks like, for real, like the Death Star just rising up. It's enormous. It's fucking insane. And then it comes, because the water's so fucking clean, it just perfectly reflects across the whole ocean to you. It's mental, bro. It's fucking sick. Like, it actually looks like you're in a movie. It was fucking amazing. I'd go back to Vietnam for sure. It was baller. Obviously, shout out SwordArt. He gets the vibe. Add that together there.
Do you think the potential iBuyPower Complexity super team would have won a major if it formed?
I don't think won a major, because you have to realize that's like a few years before like any was really capable of, but it would have been a very good team. Like, it had the potential. It was like a really exciting group of players, and it was like it really was what I always wanted to see. It was basically where like people put their egos aside and just tried to make on paper like the craziest lineup. So it's always fun to watch those rosters if you give them a go. Who knows if it could have worked, by the way? There could have been loads of conflicts internally, could have blown up, who the fuck knows. Would have been interesting though.
Was Age of Empires a big esports title? No. I was 3 when Age of Empires 2 was released in 1999, so I realized I may have missed the heyday for it. It was never really big, even in the RTS days, though. It was overshadowed by the Blizzard RTSs for the most part. StarCraft and Warcraft 3.
It's always been a fringe game. As far as I can tell, it's always had its own community, but it's never one that I was aware of, like on my radar until recently, put it out there.
Yeah. And it has... I think it has a dedicated community, which is why we've seen it come back quite a bit, but it was never really at the level of some of the big RTSs.
Just to make this not boring, if you don't give a fuck about Age of Empires, which I don't, right? I don't care about Age of Empires esports. I'm never going to watch it. Spoiler, I'll just go and rewatch some Brood War games or watch ASL games I don't watch if I did, because I care about that game more. But I did hear one cool concept that could be fun in a game like CS or League of Legends as a one-off. But they supposedly, to keep it interesting, Monty, in Age of Empires esports, supposedly they do tournaments that are the equivalent of barcode tournaments, and you play so no one knows who is who, and you just play it, and then fans try and guess who the player was. Wouldn't that be fun to have? Could you imagine that, Monty? Imagine a tournament where it's just you have to know it's T1 by seeing they're playing a pick comp and they're playing it well. You'd have to know. That would actually be kind of fun as a one-off, not like the real thing.
It is a fun concept from me.
Yeah, that's a fun concept, right? Especially then to see, because also it'd kind of prove, could you know the players well, the nameplates? Are we all just biased? Like, do we actually do what they claim we do, Monty? Do we just look and go, oh, wait, Chovy made that play. I guess that was okay. But then we see the same play from Humanoid and we go, what an idiot, because we see the name Humanoid. That's an interesting concept. I thought it was a fun idea when I heard about it.
Monty, in a different world where Max becomes a fan of the NFL, what team would you want him to be a fan of if it can't be the Broncos?
Ooh, what would your second choice be?
All right,
because in theory, for you can pick anything, right? Because you're from there, so like you can pick any other team now. What would even the logic be?
It would depend on where we lived. I think if he was growing up somewhere, I would encourage him to be a a fan of the local team, no matter what it was.
Right.
Sure. Because I think part of that, I think what's fun about my Broncos fandom is that it reminds me of where I came from. And so that's what I have so many memories tied up from growing up in Colorado around the Broncos, that it's part of like the fabric of the locations of my life. Right. And I think that makes it different. So I don't really have that much of a preference. If I had to, obviously it would be great if it was an NFC team and not an AFC team. I would be very sad if it was the Raiders. So, an AFC, I wouldn't care about the Chargers, but the Raiders and then the Chiefs would be pretty bad. If it was an NFC team, there are teams out there with history that I enjoy. I mean, the 49ers, I think I wouldn't be mad at. Maybe that would be my favorite one. Or my wife's a Giants.
You obviously don't want him to be a Cowboys fan, though, because you just don't want him to be a pleb. No. That's like being a TSM fan, isn't it?
Exactly. I know. That would be pretty bad as far as it's probably the worst NFC team. Yes. My wife's a Giants fan because she's from New Jersey. So, I mean, the Giants would be fine. I don't mind the NFC team being the Giants. I have different opinions because I'm not a Giants fan, but I like the Eagles as well. Obviously, she hates the Eagles.
See, the joke would be that would be your curse. Your kid would grow up like, hey, I'm a Giants fan. Dad, I think Eli Manning should be in the Hall of Fame. All those shit takes, like, I think Odell Beckham's catch was the greatest catch in NFL history. Dad, check out this TikTok about Odell Beckham. Like, that would be your punishment.
I like the Niners. I actually am still a fan of the Niners. I like watching the Niners play. I like the history of the Niners. I like the decisions that they make at coaches and GM. Even they are kind of cursed the last few years, which is unfortunate because I really wish they would have won some of those Super Bowls instead of the Chiefs. The Lions are fun right now.
By the way, the obvious worry for you is that if anyone's going to be a fan of the Cowboys, it logically, thematically, based on his name, will be Orion. It's fan of stars, bro. It's all about stars. It's all about getting all those stars together in that big night sky. You know, so all I'm saying is, thematically, it's right there. The correspondence is set.
But, you know, honestly, what's funny is probably my favorite NFC.
One thing I quite like is I actually like that in NFL teams, a lot of them do look like they try to retain the historical strengths. Have you noticed that? Way more than any other sport I'm aware of. Like, famously, if you are a team, like the obvious ones would be like Steelers, Ravens, Bears, you're supposed to be defensive teams. You're supposed to be like gritty, fucking hard. I actually like when teams retain those aspects. It's kind of cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it helps that the owners stick around for decades and decades and decades and like enforce a certain culture on the teams. The Ravens are actually great. I actually have always really liked the Ravens.
It's a top team, isn't it? Oh, they've always been cool, haven't they? Yeah.
They're an AFC team, but yeah, there are a lot of teams. Look, man, I don't really care too much about what NFL teams they'd be interested in. Thorin, I know you mentioned before about C9 CS2 team being irrelevant or something like that, but their performance at the Shanghai Major was just straight up unacceptable with their two massive choke jobs throwing those leads away against Liquid and Complexity. What changes to the team would you make to help ensure the team not only becomes relevant again, but also they become a more competitive team?
I mean, it's hard because I actually think this lineup looks like it was like a quite well put together min-max. Like they basically signed like some up-and-comers. They kept like a couple of established players. It's not even like, here's the problem. It's one of those teams where each individual part is not bad. Maybe you'd have to cut the Inters guy. He might just not be able to play CS2, I think. So maybe I don't know, try and sign Perfecto, something you already had him before. So I don't know. The biggest problem is you probably have to like restart the whole team and rebuild around someone else because they've already sort of tried this sort of a roster. So I don't know. It's a hard one. It's one of those ones where I don't hate what they built, but it just didn't get the results. So you probably have to redo. But the good news is, since they're within the Russian scene at the moment, if they stick with that, there are loads of talented Russian players, though. There are so many. And there's a lot of people in like VP aren't that good right now, even though they're really good. There's people who are like kicked out of other squads, maybe Spirit players. So if they do a shuffle, they could be like a beneficiary of a shuffle, basically. If there's a shuffle, everyone could get better. It's the joke in the Russian scene.
As we'll do one last question, guys. We got to most of them tonight, not all of them. As StarCraft 2 has probably sung its last verse in terms of D-tier esports, do you think Life's match-fixing scandal had the historical impact that we thought it would have at the time? Would things have really turned out differently if it never happened?
I mean, it might have been different in the sense he was a really good player. That's probably the biggest factor.
He was very young.
He could have been like the GOAT of StarCraft. He had like that potential because if you don't know, I think he won the first GSL when he was 15, mate. Like this guy was a really, really good fucking player, and he won like I think BlizzCon and shit like that. So he was an excellent player. I'd say it's more that for me. I think actually the two scandals, him and Savior, are slightly overblown in the sense that like I think people just try to be like that's why the game's not as big anymore. It's like I don't know that alone's it. You know what I mean? Like it's certainly like a really bad indictment of how bad things got, but I feel like
it didn't even really affect StarCraft 2 that much. Like the thing is that the Savior, first off, it wasn't just Savior in Brood War. It was like a bunch of players at the same time that were all implicated, which Savior was just the biggest name that they got. So it was different in that, I mean, I think there were other people with Life in that scandal as well. But I think because people had already gone through it in Brood War, it was less earth shattering. And also it didn't literally cause the collapse of sponsorships and teams like it did in Brood War. I mean, it really fucked up.
Just wasn't as big in Korea as well. The big problem was when you're in Brood War, you're in the game that all the giant telecoms are in. Like people didn't care as much in StarCraft 2. You know, it was never as big a game. It just never was. It was never like the people's game, was it?
Well, also, I think that people looked at it. The fallout was because sponsors pulled out and money pulled out of Brood War. But I don't think there was ever really like a big. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I don't think there was ever really that big of a PR scandal. in that I don't think the fans got mad and stopped watching as a result
they didn't
of the
even
Savior
do
scandal.
the truck thing, like the fucking T1 fans. If people don't know, the other problem with the Savior one is the Savior one was right just before the whole Blizzard lawsuit shit and the StarCraft 2 transition anyway. So you can never really know like how much of it was going to go that way anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it could have been used as an excuse for these teams to get out at an opportunity.
Good excuse.
Or these sponsors to get out at an opportune time as well. I mean, we saw the same shit happen with Overwatch League, right, where the sponsors all dropped it for shit that happened not even at Overwatch League, but just like at Blizzard, the developer. People will always use these scandals to get out of unfavorable business contracts because it'll trigger a clause in there. If companies are still making a lot of money, they won't care. That's the truth. So I also think that because it happened before, the Life scandal wasn't that bad. So, and also because the teams had been through it before, even though by the time the Life scandal happened, the Kespa teams were involved. Some of the same teams were involved as what happened in Brood War. I just don't think that they cared as much because I think they learned that there wasn't going to be this massive fallout. But this is just memory off the top of my head of when these things happened, guys. So perhaps other people will correct me on that one. I'm not entirely clear. I remember when the Life one happened pretty well. It was actually funny because I remember being at IEM San Jose, and that was a tournament that Life won. And Life, I know, was hungover as fuck in the finals of that tournament, and he still won. He was he was a great talent. So it's sad.
Genius. He was very, very good. Yeah.
Sad things went the way he did. Why is it always the Zerg players, Thorin? Why is it always the Zerg players?
All I'm going to say, that does feel like some alchemical correspondence. So you played a race that are sort of just insectile creatures where basically, Monty, they're just almost like drones and they're not even important. And you can just throw them away in the course of trying to win a battle. And then these people throw away their reputations just to gain raw resources. It's somewhat on the nose about not. Meanwhile, Monty, where are all the noble Terrans? They're never involved in these match fixing things. They're just humans trying to expand out our civilization to the stars, In the end, all I'm saying is these scandals might have proven that the Imperium man was justified in all the things they did in the Warhammer 40k universe. So,
I mean, the Terrans are space rednecks, though.
I've always thought that was the funniest thing. It's the notion that you can imagine in the future, like it's like Americans are in space, but they're like, "Yeehaw, boys! I got my cigar." It is ridiculous.
I love that, man.
It's so hackneyed doing it.
Yeah, but that's what was so fun about StarCraft is that they were all just space rednecks. That's what made the Terrans fun.
Yeah, true.
All right. Well, that'll do it, guys. We got to most of the questions tonight. We will be back next week for more Summoning Insight. Maybe we'll do a historical episode next week, or actually we've got some guests we need to get on the show to talk about stuff too. So maybe I will take that opportunity to get an additional voice on there, especially since I'll be back in the States and the time zone will be better for guests. So we'll see you then. We will be taking a week off for Christmas, but then we're right back into it. So catch you guys later.